Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. This is another live stream. This is David Crowley Questions, the live conference call, January 9th, 2020. First live show of 2020. So I want to thank everybody here. And I'm going to just kind of make sure everybody can hear us. And then we will get rocking and rolling. We have Sophia is here. Hey, Sophia.
Hello, everybody.
Let me just turn this down. And we also have Patty. Have you been on with us before? I feel like you might have.
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. For the first time here. That's great. We're gonna try to hear everybody's views, and it looks like Christy is also joining us here in the chat room. We got She-Wolf. I want to say hi to She-Wolf. I want to say hi to Pansy. Thank you both for joining in the chat room, and we'll try to keep this as interactive as possible between what we hear and see in the chat as opposed to what we hear and see on my screen right now. So I've got just about everything kind of pulled up. And do either of you have anything that you want to kind of start off with? We've got a whole list of different things to cover here. 10 people in the chat. Nice.
Did you want to cover any upcoming projects that we're planning?
Yeah, we're still working on the podcast. And Eric Spitfire Wilkinson has invited me back onto the show next Wednesday. So I'll be back on there, and I'll make sure to kind of talk about that too. I hope to have my book cover by then too, so that he can share that. But the goal, I think, is to do a once a month 2-hour podcast. And Sophia, I know, has been busy kind of spearheading that and making sure that we kind of got everything ready. She's created some titles that I haven't looked at yet, but we basically need 12 of them, one for each month, and hopefully maybe even kind of timed with things that happened during that month, because there is, going through a timeline of the David Crowley case, and what I have up right now is the main page for the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group. One of the first thing that you should see is the timeline, Dan Hannon's timeline. I believe it's about 2 hours, and he goes 2 hours straight. That's rough. That's rough. And of course, he's a really good speaker, and I think that video is worth everybody's time. It will really help you get caught up very quickly. So couple that in with the book that I've just finished, that I'm just waiting for, some final print proofs, and then we're off and running on that. We will have the 2-hour monthly podcast, and then of course we have Christian Coffins, who is working on a docu-series, and I think he said, if I remember last time we had Christian on, he said he wanted to do 12 episodes at 1 hour each. And I'm thinking we're going to need to do 24 at 2 hours each. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's hard to condense it. That's why I had asked the group, if we had 30 minutes or 45 minutes to hook somebody new to get involved into this case or even interested, what would we share with them?
Right.
Because like the first internet radio show, we'd have to share something with them and to get them hooked so that they'll continue to listen. And it's just hard because there's so much. And I mean, even if we went through a photo or 2 photos every time that we were on, we still wouldn't be able to cover it all, because there's just so much information, and this case is like a spider web.
Patty, what do you think we should cover in these podcasts?
I think part of it would be probably an interview of a crime scene cleaning person.
Can you say that? Can you say that again? Your phone was kind of breaking out a little bit.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I was thinking in the docu-series, possibly having a crime scene cleaning person interviewed too.
Ooh, that's good.
Um,
I like that.
because,
Yeah, I'm going to write that down.
That's a great idea.
yes, because you know you had talked before about the painting on the wall and stuff, and I think I told you I did talk to crime scene people, and they do put the blocker on when there's that amount of blood, but they do clean it first because it is a biohazard.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing is about their knowledge of decomp, how much would be at a scene, because they have been so involved with different crime scenes.
Yeah,
It
I
would
love
just
it.
be interesting, I think, on that point.
Yeah, I wonder how receptive they would be to something like that. And would
Well,
would good.
I have reached out to Spalding Decon. They're pretty much countrywide crime scene cleaning people, and those are people I did reach out to talk to you about this case.
Have you gotten any response at all, or?
The owner does seem interested. Her name is Laura.
Nice. That's great. And do you think maybe she would go if you do get a chance to maybe get a little further along with her as far as getting into the details of how it could be done? Obviously, we would love to do it live, to have this person come on live. But if they can't, we can always
Right.
do a pre-recorded thing that we then air on the show. So I mean, whatever they're comfortable with,
Right.
But
Okay.
that's
Okay.
great. Thank you for that.
Will do.
Awesome. That is great. So we got about 11 people in the chat room right now. So thank you everyone who is joining us here. We're just getting going, just getting started. And we're gonna go through. One thing I like to do with all these shows is just kind of start off with some of the latest things that are happening, some of the latest posts that are in the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group. And about 12 hours ago, it looks like Christy Strickland posted, "This is David's gold wedding band. The ring on the table is David's." I had wondered that because in here it does look gold, but the one on the, and let me just go to this one here, but the one on the, let me scroll down. The one on the table kind of looks silver, so I don't know. But it does look like the same ring. What do you guys think of that?
I'm here, by the way.
Oh, hey. Is it Chrissy?
Hey. Yeah,
Hey, we were just talking about you.
I know.
Okay, I guess we'll stop then. No, just kidding.
But, yeah, it's okay. I'm used to people talking about me when I'm around. So
Okay,
it's
cool.
fine.
You're
I'm
gonna
used to it.
you're gonna fit
But
in great here.
I'm so used to the abuse. So, look, the other thing, though, about Kamel's band
Mhm.
is her wedding band had diamonds on it.
Right.
Had stones on it.
Could that be
So,
her?
mhm.
Could that be her engagement ring, or do you think it's?
No, because it was a set. So she had the engagement ring, but then the band that went with it
Mhm.
was a diamond band.
Do
So
we-
that's why I think it's David.
Okay.
Because if you look at the picture that I posted of her ring,
I'm gonna look for that one.
you can see that it's actually two rings on her finger.
Okay.
And was that Was the band, does that have diamonds on it too, or was that just a solid band?
It has diamonds on it too.
Okay.
Okay, so it's one. So it's, oh, I see. It's a. Okay, so I thought it was like a two band or a very thick engagement ring, but you're saying what I'm looking at here is the engagement ring and the wedding band
Yeah,
for Kamel.
that's how my set is, and that's very common
Okay.
for sets nowadays. So
Beautiful ring.
that's what it looks like to me anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't see why she would have a like white gold or platinum or silver engagement ring and then have a wide gold band. I think she would have wanted it to match.
Okay, well that's the other question that we were going through is that wedding band, is it gold or is it silver or chrome, whatever you want to call it? Because
It looks like it's gold to me.
okay, we're gonna pull that DSC 0300
You can talk about me if you disagree.
Okay,
Well,
let's
the picture.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. The picture of David, I can't remember which one it was, but his wedding band was a white gold, it looked like. But on the table, it did look like it was yellow gold. So,
Right. That's
sorry.
yeah. If we're looking at this one here, I'm gonna pull up the ring, and I mean that looks silver to me. Right, David's ring.
Yeah.
Now, in the image, the ring that he's wearing, obviously he's wearing a ring because of where he is, where he's taken that photo. That could have made the silver ring look more yellowish, possibly.
That is possible when you take pictures of certain jewelry, and especially if you use a flash, it can make silver look gold. So that's a possibility. Or with that ring, with it looking questionable, it could have been a gold band, but then or it could have been a white gold band, and eventually white gold, the rhodium plating will kind of slowly wear off and it's kind of start taking on a more gold hue. That's why a lot of people will have to go later on and get their rings replated. That's the downside of white gold. And so that may be another reason why that looked funny like that.
Yeah, but if it's a true white gold, like a 14 karat white gold, that wouldn't happen.
No, 14 karat white gold, it's still rhodium plated. It's still gold. The gold,
okay.
no gold is white. All gold is gold. And to get white gold, they rhodium plate it.
Oh, okay.
That's why so many people like platinum, but it's really expensive. So,
Yeah.
Some people go for silver because the downside of white gold is it eventually yellows, and you have to get it replated.
You had the other image of his hand too, where his hand is over one of the mics. And that one does look more kind of like a silverish to me. I think we have a good photo
And he
of that.
could have had
somewhere.
2 bands. My husband has 2 bands. I know that sounds crazy, but because of the work that he does, he doesn't want to get his other band messed up at work. So he has a work wedding band and then rest of the time wedding band. So I mean, he could have had 2 bands.
Could have. I mean, I'm sure we have a lot of other photos where that should show his wedding ring, wedding band. So,
Greg and Sophia, are you going to ask Christian to do like a reenactment type thing?
yes, you have to go do that test.
Yeah.
Stand in a
Yeah.
elevator with some gold tint and take the photo. Or have your husband do it, I guess, if it's his band. And he has to look just like David. It's got to be the same position, same face. No, I'm just kidding. That's going a little too far.
That's not going to happen. My husband is a little bit older than David.
That's all right.
Uh,
Okay. Anything else on that one? I'm gonna move on to the next topic here. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so we all know how to sort from new activity to recent posts. From time to time, I will go in here and delete some of my old posts or any repetitive posts, because I do want to keep this as clean as possible for people, especially new people who are just trying to get caught up on stuff. So there's Kamel's rings that you posted. A couple photos from the sloppumentary that I ended up watching last night again. I think we should, at some point, we should definitely talk about the sloppumentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Donna has posted something about the David's house from Zillow. What is the wooden door in the wall downstairs right of the staircase? That used to be, and I know it's in one of the photos, it looks like kind of where, let me see if I can go there.
Wasn't that supposed to be for the bathroom he was putting in?
No,
Did
because
they
the
get rid of
bathroom
that?
bathroom would be on the other side. It looks like they just put a door over that area, but it's one of those why do I want to say circuit protector? It's not the right word. Not circuit
Well, the
protector.
reason why I asked if they got rid of that
J-box.
bathroom downstairs is because the advertisement
Mhm.
says there's 2 bathrooms.
Yeah, it's an electrical box. I just can't think of the name of it right now, but it'll come back to me. So it's just another covering for it.
You mean like the circuit breaker box?
The circuit breaker box. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Oh my gosh, Greg.
It's been a rough day.
Trying to figure out what you were trying to say.
That's gonna happen a lot. Don't worry. We're gonna play this guessing game.
And you have me here so you
Yeah.
can talk about me.
I know. See, that was all part of my plan. Yes, that's what I do believe it is. It's
That's
just
what
a
I'm
circuit
thinking.
breaker box. Exactly. Or I'll just take credit for it. How about that? Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Knowing it was nothing.
Yeah, that's what I said.
That's what I said 3 years ago. Yeah, see, this little box here, I think, is what it is here. I'm going to pull that up. But I'm pretty sure what we're talking about is this box right above here. Maybe it's not a circuit breaker box. Yeah. Maybe not.
Could that have been access to plumbing?
Could have been. I'm going to try to go to the
Like
image
if
she's
that's in the
talking about.
basement, that could be access to a clean out if their clean out wasn't outside.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been access to that.
It's a nice house. I really like the house.
Yeah, it is. This is nice.
Yeah, this is what they're talking about right there. This wooden box. I believe that is the same area.
Can I ask a
See, I
question?
totally misread that post. I thought they were talking about the two doors, one going
Yeah, me
that used to
too.
go down to the basement.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Not bad. Oh, okay. I see what they're talking about now. Huh. Interesting. Okay, so probably the electrical box then?
Yeah, that's what I would think.
An interesting spot for it.
Yeah, and looking at the layout of the house, I don't know if I don't have that big image of that, but that might also help too. Okay, so there's that one from Donna. I posted another replay thing. It didn't get blocked. I was really surprised that one didn't get blocked.
Yeah, I just checked a little bit ago.
You never know, though. You never know. I just didn't want to take that chance on here. So I want to say hi again to everybody in the chat room. We got 13 people there. Nova Coco has joined us as well. Pamela Johnson has also joined us. Thank you both. Thanks to everybody. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. If anybody has any questions or anything that you would like to bring up, go ahead and do it. We will be here just going through some of these posts. Another one was from Randy Young. What I don't get is if you look at any of his friends' social media pages, no one has any pictures of them hanging out as friends or even pictures memorializing their friend. I've had friends pass away, and for years on the anniversary of their passing, put up a pic. This didn't happen 20 years ago. That is just odd to me. Just a thought. I think it's a pretty good thought. What do you think?
The only person who has posted photos of David or even tagged David is Sean Wright. If you go back far enough on his profile, he's got, I'm not even exaggerating, thousands of photos of David.
After the death?
Creepy and stuff. No, not after the death. But he has posted some in the past of him and David.
Yeah, I think if I understood this correctly, what Randy is talking about is after David died. Like, you know how every year you'd kind of post, you know, hey, it's been 1 year since we lost our good friend, blah, blah, blah. I remember seeing David's sister doing that maybe a year afterwards or something. But I don't know. And they can also make it private, too. They can make certain things private, so maybe, you know, we're just not seeing them. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought that I never really thought too much about. But you know, it's like, well, what are they gonna say? Hey, it's been 3 years since my friend killed his wife and his daughter and then shot himself. You know, so I don't know. I can kind of see both sides of it, I guess.
And we spent all this time slandering him in the public eye. You know, hey,
Yeah.
but we remember you.
Woe is me. We're gonna keep trying to rape your project, but hey, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Still getting that cha-ching from your death.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, you'll be on A&E and Netflix in no time. There was a question brought up about Joseph Seaton. Is he the commanding officer of David Crowley from August 2008 to 2009? So, if anybody served with David or if anybody has any information about that, please make sure to help us figure out what the truth is with that, because we have heard conflicting reports and I would like to get a nice, clear, clean answer. I did like one of the comments in that post. Not that one. I think it was, yeah, so Amanda Richards wrote, I wondered about that also. And why was he the only person on the mockumentary that had their title changed? At first his caption read Joseph Seaton Friend, then later it said Joseph Seaton Commanding Officer. Why was he so special? I didn't see anyone else with the multiple titles. They could have labeled certain people as weed dealer, frenemy, etc. Sorry, couldn't help myself. But she's right. I mean, because when I first watched this, I was so when somebody had first told me about this theory that Joseph Seaton might not be David's commanding officer, I skimmed through the sloppumentary to see what his title was, and they're right. The first time that he's brought up, his title is David's friend. So I just didn't even look any further. It wasn't until yesterday, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, wait a minute. Here is what I was looking for, because I do remember it's they're making a big picture of why he's David's commanding officer. Why wouldn't they lead with that? But they were leading with David's friend. They had to make sure that the people in the sloppumentary were David's friends. David's friends, and then they just kind of casually, David's friends that accuse him of a double murder-suicide, of David's friends that believe David Crowley is guilty of a double murder-suicide. They conveniently leave that part out, as if these are some people that we should really take seriously. I don't take any of them seriously. Mm-hmm. We went over the Ben Swan interview.
I have a feeling why they may have decided to throw that commanding officer thing in there. I mean, I don't know, but it's just a theory. But when it goes further along and he's talking about David, he starts talking about his military training and how he always was one step ahead, etc., etc. And so he was talking about him in his service capacity. So I think to drive home that he knew what he was talking about, maybe they threw in there, well, obviously he knew because he served with David, and so he knew this to be a fact about him.
And he's also the one who starts showing a lot of anger as they start discussing how David was guilty and their change in personality and everything.
Right. He's one of the guys who's saying that this happened back in the summer, that David was different and distancing himself. This guy pops up out of nowhere back into David's life. Couple months
back
maybe.
In the summer.
Yeah, it's that's kind of weird too. Coincidence.
Well, do you think part of it was because of the fact that David was getting to be well known? He was on YouTube, and because of the movie and everything else, that people wanted to, come in and reap the benefits of his, fame or whatever.
Interesting. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Another odd thing I see about that, and I don't know because I can't speak for every branch or for every person. Sophia, you might be able to speak to this more than I can, but it says commanding officer, and David was enlisted. He wasn't an officer, and I don't know of a lot of officers that hung around with enlisted personnel.
That's true.
Is it really?
They kind of discourage it.
Why?
Yeah.
In proper relationships and stuff, but
they're
favoring...
out. But they're out, right? I mean, well, I don't know if Joseph Seaton is out or when he got out actually, but David wasn't a part
of it. I have a feeling.
Go ahead.
Well, I just have a feeling that Joseph Seaton is claiming a lot of things that he's not. And just from what I've heard from other people, they're backing up that feeling.
Yeah, and they could be misusing that term commanding officer. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about his service record, but I mean, he may not have even been an officer. But I'm just speculating if they're calling him a commanding officer because that's what he called himself, then he would have been an officer. And I've never known of anyone that I know of that did that. I mean, that's why they have separate. They have officers clubs and they have enlisted personnel clubs. You can't even go to the same clubs.
Mhm. And he has an other than honorable discharge.
Oh,
Joseph
wow.
Staten. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Mhm.
What for? Do you know what for?
He, from what I was told, the story he tells people is not the real story.
What's
But
the story?
supposedly,
Yeah.
when he was overseas, he took the blame for something that his unit did. And that's why he had a disorder or an other than honorable discharge.
And so he was a hero.
But that's what he's claiming. But you don't, I mean, you really have to screw up to get that type of a discharge.
Yeah.
And other than honorable is you have to, or dishonorable even, there's several different types of discharges. And there's like the dishonorable one, and then there's like the other than
General.
honorable.
There's a general.
Yeah, general, yeah. And
I think it's
then
other than honorable than dishonorable.
That's a big range.
and then I had an honorable discharge, but it was medical. So
Yeah, he would have had to have done something that was, I think, deemed like unethical or not within the standing of the values that the branch that he was in abided by to get an other than honorable, if I'm not mistaken. Because I know of people that have gotten general discharges for smoking marijuana. So, I mean, you would have to, I think, to get an other than honorable, I mean, you would have to do something even more what they would consider something dishonest or unethical.
And not only that, they give you chances. You redeem yourself. It's not like you screw up and boom, you're out. You are reprimanded. You have to go through a process. And it's not like you're immediately kicked out, that kind of thing. So you get stripped of titles, you get stripped of medals, and you get stripped of pay grades and stuff. You know, it's not boom, you're out. So that's why that story that he is telling is not authentic. It's not real. You don't just screw up once and have that type of discharge.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it to me.
All right. Well, another one here that Sophia posted, and this is about the credits for A Gray State, the well-known sloppumentary by Eric Nelson that has done more damage to the family and to the truth about David Crowley. It's done more damage than any of us could possibly ever do, no matter what we did. But David Crowley, I mean, this is just weird because if you look at the credits, and I don't know if we've gone through and seen how many, how many credits is David Crowley given? However many credits he's given, it's really weird that you would put the person that you are accusing of a double murder suicide in the film credits. I don't understand. I never understood that. It does not make sense. It's really really odd. Um, and it's David Koresh
That's
is
why I
gonna
included
do
it.
the sound. Is gonna do the soundtrack for the next Waco movie, and it's just it does not make sense how you can have it both ways like that, and how they constantly do this, and trying to have it both ways, saying, well, this guy's a killer, but
Was
hey,
not
let's keep making his movie. Go ahead.
could it be one of the reasons why they did that was so that his estate could get compensated
It could be,
for
State, nobody's left.
but I mean,
Would
even
I'm thinking,
go ahead.
his dad be next of kin?
I would think so.
I'm thinking they did it because they had to cover their butts because of the fact that they were showing clips from Gray State, and maybe Eric Nelson did check and he had it licensed or whatever to David, so he might have had to
For legal
credit
reasons.
David because of that.
Yeah.
Because
Interesting.
someone in his family could have gone after him legally if they didn't. They because even if your immediate family's not left, you still have an estate, and so whoever was left as his representative would have been able to go after them and sue them if they wanted to. I mean, they would have had to have gotten permission, I think, even to show any of the stuff that they did show, but I think they probably did do it to cover their butts to make sure they sued, and possibly someone got compensated for it.
Interesting.
Well, the sharing of the audio recording right there, they would have to cover themselves. The one, that was in the documentary with the mics,
Yeah.
because that was actually David's voice, that was from a computer of his.
Yeah.
There's always a logical answer. See?
And
I'm
was
not
all
saying
the
I'm
music
logical.
his?
What'd you say, Sophia?
Was all the music his in the
Yeah.
documentary?
Yeah.
I know the
looks-
very last song wasn't.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it looks like everything was his. The only copyright thing that comes up is for that song at the very end, "Fall in Line." Oh, here it is. I was looking for this one. This is one, Sophia, you were talking about a little earlier. If you were going to try to explain this case to a total stranger who has never heard of this case before and only had 30 to 45 minutes to get them interested in this case, what would you make sure to share with them? You got 30, 45 minutes. Really, we have 2 hours. But what I would like to do with the podcast, I don't know if Sophia, if I've talked to you about this yet, but what I'd really like to do with the podcast is start off each podcast with like maybe a 2-minute, like kind of not a teaser, but just a 2-minute thing, video that plays a commercial, I guess, that kind of gets people kind of caught up on what we're talking about here, what's going on, blah blah blah. 1 or 2 minutes, quick, and then we go right into the actual podcast, and et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's going to be a big challenge too, because obviously you're going to hear that 12 times. You can hear it at the beginning of every podcast, but I do believe something like that would be very valuable if it's done right.
Well, we can't do a video because a podcast you can only listen to.
Right. We would just we would just do like a 2-minute, just, audio of just whatever to get people kind of caught up, you know.
2 minutes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Good luck.
I mean, I actually went through that today, but it actually took me about 3 hours
Really?
to explain and get someone interested and get their interest piqued. But I mean, I think after I mentioned just several different factors, they were kind of intrigued by it. And
Give us
so
a
I
couple.
Just, but
Give
then
us a
I just
give us a
kept,
couple
I
factors.
just, well, because this person that I spoke with has been in law enforcement and other types of stuff, and has actually been on scene, etc. I mentioned, well, the first thing I mentioned was the placement of the gun and the entrance wound to the head, and the lack of the amount of blood and decomp fluids. And I mentioned the animal scavenging and how strange it was that there's certain parts of the bodies that were scavenged. And let's see, what else did I mention? Just how chaotic the scene was, like how there's a lack of blood, but then there's strange places where there's blood spatter or blood drops, you know, but then where you would think that there would be a lot of blood spatter, there's a lack of. And of course, you know, the bullet in the ceiling, you know, I mean, even though it supposedly went through his head, didn't have anything on it. And I just went on from there. But the huge thing was the placement of the gun, the way his fingers were placed. Oh, and the partial mummification was one thing that really interested the person that I spoke with. They said they didn't know how that happened. And I mean, and this person isn't just a regular person, so I guess that's kind of different for like trying to get everyday people interested. But he's seen animal scavenging, and he said he had never seen that on like a face or a skull. And the hands, it doesn't make sense that usually if it happens they go for meatier parts of the body like the thighs or the stomach or something like that. And just, I mean, just based off of like everything that I said, just with I was told that there probably should have been a lot more blood around. Oh, and I also talked about the footprints, the strange footprints. That was another big thing. I was like, okay, well, there's these footprints, but it's basically almost like just the balls of the feet, but then there's not footprints all through the house. There's just these random footprints. And I talked about how, like, as far as investigation wise, I went through what happened, like how things were moved around. You can clearly see in the pictures and things that things were moved around, and that's not usual. And that what else? The crime scene, things being moved around, and I'm trying to remember what else. Do you remember what else I was telling you, Sophia, that I mentioned?
But I think you covered it all. Oh, and did you mention about watching the videos of how the people talked and their eye movements and everything?
No, I didn't. But that's the biggest thing that I encouraged him to do was I said, go watch the documentary. I said, because almost every person that has gone to the group was led there from watching the documentary. You'll watch it and you will more than likely be like, there is something seriously wrong with this situation. So I think that's a huge thing. That would be a very big way to lead, is say, what, before you listen to the podcast, watch this documentary, because that really makes a lot. I think probably 90% at least of the people that have come to the page are like, that's why they came. Because they're like, this doesn't seem right.
Well, I did get an Uber driver interested in 10 minutes. I never talked so fast in my life, but she now is part of the Facebook thing. I don't know if she's on here right now, but she really is into true crime. And when I told her about this story, she went absolutely nuts.
Wow.
And I think the biggest thing was that she belongs to some, I don't remember, some group that goes into true crime stories. And I didn't get a chance to get the name of it from her. But she said she was going to look into it. But I think her biggest take was Rania's arm being ripped off. I think that's what clenched her. I think most people, when they hear something like that of a child, it's immediately taken as the most horrendous thing that could have happened, besides her being killed. But just the thought of doing that to somebody, is just beyond any of us. So I think there has to be that forum, and I think there has to be the docuseries to cover this, so people can understand and see the true part of it all, not what the documentary tried to portray and everything like that. So that's my feeling.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what somebody in the group posted. Lynn Anderson posted 1. The gun that David used to allegedly kill himself was found on the left side of his body. He is right-handed. Hands missing. Wedding ring that is only tangible evidence to missing hand found after police processes the crime scene sitting on the kitchen island by a relative. No sign of forcible entry. Rear slider found cracked, slightly ajar. Police use rear slider to enter the home. Eric Nelson later says it was common knowledge among friends, family that the slider was broken. Slider also used during August's birthday party, which was held on the deck. So anyone at the party would also have knowledge of the broken door, if Eric Nelson is telling the truth. 3. Front window curtains usually kept closed. The bodies were found because the window curtains were wide open. No one saw anything unusual, even though the deaths allegedly happened in the living room facing the street with the window curtains open. 4. No one heard gunshots. 2 houses within proximity of next door. 5. Eric Nelson has publicly declared that he promised to get to the truth about the Crowley case and give the families answers. He created the documentary A Gray State and hired people in his efforts, but did not hire any forensic examiners. Nelson, let me just scroll down a little bit more. Nelson,
Do you find that interesting?
that he didn't hire any forensic examiners? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. When he could have. Didn't they have like a
Yeah.
psychiatrist or something that was involved somehow? I don't remember seeing the psychiatrist on the documentary, but
No, he wasn't in the documentary, but he helped Alex Wilkerson.
Oh, yeah,
Alec write
Alec
that
Wilkinson.
Death of a Dystopian.
Oh, that's why it's okay. That's all garbage.
Yeah.
And she says Eric Nelson, however, used forensic experts on a previous film project. So why not use forensic experts here? Scared of what you might find? Nelson has also made comments that do not match evidence at the crime scene and have not been proven to be true. Either Eric Nelson is lying and promoting false info, or he is telling the truth in some degree and has knowledge about the Crowley case obtained from a source other than publicly available docs. Eric Nelson says about item 57 that David was shooting at the dog and missed. He makes he makes conflicting statements. I'm sorry. I gotta get that quote. If somebody can find me that quote, I will be so happy.
I really want to see that question and answer.
I mean, it was posted a while. It was posted a while ago. We could go back and watch that maybe. Okay, let me get through this. I'm almost done. He makes conflicting statements about the playlist of music found in the home. The playlist was important to prove Eric Nelson's theory that David committed a premeditated murder-suicide. Eric Nelson also gets opinion from a psych with a sketchy background who had no contact with David in life and no access to medical records to say David is a delusional conspiracy theorist. I would say this to anyone interested in the case. Read the docs and evidence for yourself. Think critically and with an open mind.
See, I love it when Lynn gets involved because
She made me laugh. That was just
she's amazing.
I was just not expecting that. I really need that quote. I really need to find that.
But I have to watch that question and answer part that he supposedly did, and I haven't been able to come across it. But there are so many conflicting things that he supposedly said, and I want to be able to use it to nail him.
That's a interesting. That's a big one. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. You could really dissect. Okay, let's think about this first. Item 57 that nobody saw, nobody knew about. So this theory would have to have been created at least after the bullet was found, right? So nobody that knew about it. So then all of a sudden, they all come up 1 month later after the bodies are found that, well, this had to have been what happened. I mean, the police don't even say that. Nobody's saying that. Where's Eric Nelson getting that information about item 57? Shooting at the dog and missed.
Mason Hendricks.
That's just ridiculous. Now, Hendricks credited the bullet, item 45. When I spoke with him, he credited item 45, the bullet that goes into the basement, as being part of, whatever David shot at the dog but missed, which is ridiculous. And unless they were there, how would they even know that? And how irresponsible is it of them to just assume something like that? If you guys were there, then I will believe that you are correct. That David shot at the dog and missed. But if you weren't there, you don't know what you're talking about. You are guessing and you're trying to pass it off as fact. And that's a big problem with a lot of these guys.
Was the dog flying around?
Yes. He can fly. He does crime scene cleanup. He does everything. Poor Paleo.
It's really interesting. I mean, because I'm trying to picture that scenario. So he just decided he's gonna lay on the floor and like try and get as low as he possibly can and shoot at him. But I mean, he would still have to be levitating or flying around the room in order for him to shoot the ceiling in an attempt.
Maybe he had a magic feather like Dumbo did. I don't know. I mean, this is.
I mean, that's ludicrous.
Yeah, it's pretty far-fetched. Very far-fetched. Anything else on that? I think we should get to the sloppymentary. We're kind of already there, I guess, involved in it. But we did stream it last night, and so it was the first time that I've watched it in a long time. And I don't know. It's just I really don't think people should watch it. It's not a good film. It doesn't give you any closure. It doesn't even bring up any of the valid questions. It just totally, completely glosses over everything that we've been talking about, everything that really counts in this case here. I mean, there's just some very simple questions that a documentary on the David Crowley case could have answered, and that bothered me. What I have here.
Did you notice, though, that the documentary took his wall and his outline on the wall and used that as a guide for...
In a failed effort to try to show that this is what a crazy person does. They use this image here that Christy posted to also show that. They want his wife, and everybody else looks clean, crisp, and nice. It's just them.
And make sure, and this is for the audience, when you watch that, because you're going to notice that hardly any of them are close to the date of death. So they're using clips from years before they died to convince people that he was going crazy, and they mislead you into thinking that this is all leading up to the death, when it's actually years between a video or a clip that they use and then when they died. Oh gosh, I can't really talk tonight, so I apologize.
Well, and that's this wall, this photo, the David's wall, like
I think that was their apartment in Minnesota.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Before they moved into the house. And that's why he was taking the wall down, was because they were getting ready to move. It wasn't because he gave up.
They're using different dates. They're using things to just create this story that just is not there. It's fiction. Anything else anybody else wants to cover?
It has to do, and he said she didn't have any hands. How would he know that? Because the medical examiner hadn't been there. Did he actually roll her?
No.
Well, how would you know her hands were missing if you didn't move her body?
Right. They had to have.
And if you read his police report, it matches the BCA lab results, where he's okay. There's a summary. Both his police report and that summary are very, very detailed. Out of all the people on the scene, he's the most detailed person, and that's why I would love to talk to him.
Yeah, because like Catherine said at that the one conference you guys had, and it is true, they're not supposed to touch anything until the coroner or the medical examiner does get to the scene. So, I don't know. There's just too much, like you were saying.
Oh, I got a question about that. How long should it take for the medical examiner to get to the scene? At what point do they do that? I mean, they have to clear the
Usually
house.
within an hour.
They're not going to call the
max
medical
12
examiner
hours.
if there's if they need to clear the house, or if they think that there's a bomb because of the Muslim stuff, right? We heard that lie that
Yeah.
they're all scared, that they think that there's some type of bomb. Gummert never talks about that. I've never directly
Yeah, why
asked
is
him
that
about
not
that.
in the police report?
Right. Nothing like that is. No. And where is Mason Hendricks and other people, where are they getting this information from? They're so close to it. Too close. Too close to the whole thing, and way too close to just buying whatever the official theory is, and then spreading it, and then stirring up trouble with people that don't want to fall in line with what they want to tell you. Huge red
Yeah,
flags.
and they get upset with the people that are trying to find the truth because they don't want that.
I think another interesting
Mhm.
thing is the Ben Swan interview with Danny August Mason.
Mhm.
And Christy had sent me a video earlier today, and which was funny because I had downloaded it last night, of Danny August Mason. It happened 6 years ago with Paranormal
Oh.
Sarah, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm bringing it up because there's a lot of information in that video. But he is so relaxed. He's, talking back and forth, and he's not all shifty.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Ben Swan video, oh my goodness, he's just like he was in the documentary. And it's very telling.
Well, the reason I went looking for other videos of him was because I watched that video again, and because I've been looking at other cases and stuff, I've been really looking at detecting if someone's being deceptive. And one of the things that I picked up on in the one that was posted was, one of the things is he hardly looks at the camera at all. He's looking around, and he's constantly, almost every other word is and when you're going to analyze something like that, you have to get a baseline of a person, because sometimes that's just how a person speaks. So you can't necessarily say that a person is being deceptive if that's part of their normal speech. But the thing is often an indicator of someone being deceptive. And so that's why I went looking for that. And I think he says maybe one time in it. He's so much more relaxed. He's so much more calm. He doesn't repeatedly say that over and over again. So it just really made me start thinking, what is he hiding? Why is he so nervous? Or, what's the deal? And I'd like to see more of him, to see, if there's a more consistent pattern in his speech where he doesn't speak like that, and he just does in that particular video.
Well, he has a lot of Danny Mason and David Crowley did a lot of media, so there is a lot of those two, and even just watching some of those where it just never seemed like David Crowley and Danny August Mason were on the same page. It just always seemed, I don't know if it was like a competition or something, but it just always seemed kind of odd to me.
Oh, I know something that I was curious about. I mentioned this to Sophia earlier. Has anyone ever considered reaching out to any of the actors that participated in the trailer? Like not like Danny August Mason. I mean, because when I went and I looked I looked up actually The Rise.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, and now I'm going to digress.
It's okay.
But this, because what does this have to do with, to find that, the IMID thing came up about it, and like it showed like all of these different actors that had participated. And when I saw all these different actors, I started thinking, well, yeah, they used actors in the other one as well, different people. And I'm just wondering if anyone has ever tried to reach out to any of those people to see what the vibe was like working around them. Like if there was tension, if any kind of arguments happened, or if there was a lot of tension, or if they ever heard any backbiting or anything like that going on.
Yeah, I have not. The ones that I would want to reach out to would be Charles Hubble. Charles Hubble was probably one of the only ones publicly who was saying that, this does not sound like David. This just does not seem like David. So, and the female who is a part of the 2012 trailer, she's not. I don't know her name either, but she's not really mentioned and doesn't really talk that much about the whole thing. So I don't know. But that would be good. It definitely would be good. There is enough time that has passed that nobody can use the weak excuse of grieving or any crap like that. So, I think that'd be good. Yeah, and this is where we really need some help for people in the group to try to reach out to these people, or if you can't, if you can pass me along some contact number, some way that I can reach out to these people, that I'd be more than happy to. So it's just I have no problem with that. But he's definitely one. He Charles Hubble would be the first one that I would want to reach out to about that. Now I have to remember
really
all of that
really
was still
interesting.
back in 2012 too, right?
Yeah. But, it's really interesting because, sometimes you see in, like, certain cases and things where, like, just this one person saying something ignites a whole new thing. And, like, that person may not have, like, stepped forward on their own, but then when they're approached, they don't have a problem talking. They're just, I don't know, maybe they're just afraid to actually step forward and say something on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't realize that they have valuable information. They may not realize that they know anything that is of any significance, so they don't step forward. So, asking certain people the right kinds of questions could really give some insight into, you know, what the relationships were like, and how things were, and if there were any tensions, or, you know, if things progressively got tense or whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yep. He definitely would be one to reach out to. I wonder if he would have been part of the whole TV series moving forward, you know, or if anybody else. It just seems like the only people that had any that David was concerned about signing anything were Mitch Heil and Danny August Mason. But again, Charles Hubble was really just, you know, playing a part in this film, even though Danny Mason tried to tell the police the same thing. Just an actor. Charles Hubble was just an actor in that project, but his part I thought was going to be a very big part too. It looked like he was going to be one who would have gotten his head chopped off and somehow came back to life. If you watch the 2012 trailer, that's what I see in it. So here is an article I found from the Twin Cities on 1/17/2015. Charles Hubble is quoted here. A few good quotes about Hubble. It says, "I told David I'm a Buddhist, atheist, tree-hugging liberal," and with a wink in his eye, he said, "I'm just trying to get something out there." He always had that wink in his eye. He told me he had found a niche, a target audience, and could feed off of that niche. The Crowley family would come to the Hubble house for dinner, and when they left at the end of the night, Hubble said he and his wife would stand in the doorway watching the couple leave and say, "It's always great to have young, gorgeous people come to our home and look as happy as they are," Hubble said. They were gorgeous, and they had this happy and bubbly and talkative child. So let's see if this is one. Let's see. They knew right away that they were a team and their marriage was going to happen. So I'm trying to see if maybe they cut that part out where Hubble said he was blindsided and shocked by the news of David. He seemed more grounded and focused than would lend itself to anything chaotic, Hubble said. The entire time I worked with him, there was nothing aggressive or chaotic or strange or abnormal. He was one of the ones I was hanging my hat on, one who was going to succeed. Very interesting. I don't know if there's anything else that Hubble says in this particular article, but he's got some interesting quotes for sure. So, the other guy, what's his name? H.T. Altman. He's like the villain. He plays the villain in this whole thing. He would be another guy that I would want to reach out to. I think that's his name, H.T. Altman. Yeah. He's got like this interesting presence. And in the trailer, he's not in it that much, but his character is really one that sticks out to me more than anybody else for some reason. He just has that look, I think. So I don't know if that is on his. I guess it's not on IMDb. It's just a trailer, but and really it could be a short. They could have really made it a short, but whatever. So H.T. Altman is definitely another interesting person to look into if you have not. I think I mean they had a great cast. They had had a great future with that project.
Where did he even meet Danny August Mason?
They met at film school. They met at the Minnesota film school that they were both going to. It's a Minnesota business school. I forget I think that's what it was called. Minnesota something of business.
I only ask because in that interview that I watched today, he said that he had got like a film and acting degree he went to two different colleges, to complete it, but he never mentioned the Minnesota film school one.
Yeah,
I
in one
think
of
one was.
I think in the
Oh, go
Alex
ahead.
Jones interview, in one of those interviews where they talk about how they met. So I think that's where I heard it from, that they were both in film school and that's how they kind of connected. Minnesota School of
Okay.
Business, I think is what it's called. Minnesota School of Business. Yeah, that's it right there. That's the ticket. Interesting place. I hope the stream is still good. It's weird. I had 2 drops for some reason. So it looks like everything is okay. It looks like it's still up.
Yeah, it's still going.
Then we'll keep rolling on. I'm still having the back of my book worked on and the front. I have not seen the final version of the front cover yet, but talking with the guy who is working on the actual artwork, there's just something about the gray stage, and I told him this, so he knows. He's he's not gonna be offended that we're talking about it live, but it's just something about this that I do not like, and I want it to look more like this gray stage kind of here. So we're kind of working on that right now. But the back of the book, these are pretty much some of these would be the main things that I would want somebody um, to know. I'm going to go ahead and read some of these things here. Within 24 hours of finding the bodies of David Kamel and Rania Crowley, the Apple Valley Police Department were treating the incident as a double murder-suicide. Now, authorities cannot prove David wrote Allahu Akbar in his wife's blood on the living room wall. Authorities cannot prove David wrote I have loved you all with all of my heart on the laptop in the kitchen. Authorities cannot prove David wrote Open the Rise most recent version, submit to Allah now on a notepad in his office bedroom. Authorities cannot prove the dog trapped inside the house ate David's right hand, both of Kamel's hands, and their daughter's right arm, since dog feces tests were never conducted. Authorities did not see the bullet hole in the living room ceiling nor the bullet hole. Authorities did not see the bullet hole in the living room ceiling or the bullet in the attic above until they questioned David's friend a month after the bodies were found. Authorities did not find a motive to support their accusations against David Crowley. Authorities did not find David's blood on any of the bullets at the crime scene. Authorities do not know when David Kamel and Rania died. What we know for sure is that David Crowley has not been proven guilty. So I hope that, for people who just aren't really, don't really know that much about this, they kind of flip through the book, they'll see some of the photos, or look at the cover, but it's the back of the book that I think really has to capture. And there is a lot here, and maybe it's too much, but for me, I feel like this is the stuff that I tell people when I do have that chance to kind of say, hey, have you heard about this David Crowley case? Well, let me tell you about this. And it's all of the things that they could not prove, and then we can go from there.
Well, that right
Use the back of your book
that's
for the
that
podcast.
right there. Sorry, go ahead.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to tell
Sophia.
Greg that we should use the back of his book for the podcast intro.
I was just going to say, that right there is your podcast intro.
Great minds.
Yeah, I should have timed that. Then we could have seen how long that was. Throw some, music, some ambient music behind it. Okay, I could see that. I like it.
Mhm.
Maybe we could have Dan Hinden actually read that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect for it.
All right. Well, I think we got our intro then. at least the words for it. Um, cool. I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
it,
perfect.
what are some other ideas for the podcast? Since we're talking about the podcast, what should we do? Uh, you know, what should we make sure that we cover? Especially in the first one, I really want to focus really on the first show. Should it be something similar to what the documentary is going to be, kind of a summary of everything that has happened up until now? Should we cover? I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth on it. What do you guys think?
I I think you should start with the timeline of events leading up to it, and then the incident itself before you fast forward all the way up until now. I think kind of like kind of paint a proper picture so that you can kind of undo some of what the sloppymentary's done. Kind of do a timeline and kind of address maybe some of those issues. And and then
what type of picture
know.
should we be painting here? Like when you say, I mean, you talking about like go over the official theory, or
Well,
what do you mean?
Because I mean, the documentary, they basically painted a picture of a gun-toting, crazy veteran with PTSD, snapped, that killed his family, and that's just crazy. I mean, there's just so many reasons why that doesn't make any sense. And then and once you kind of cover, like what kind of person he was based off of things like that one thing that you just read a little while ago about someone else's perspective about what kind of person that he was, and if we possibly could speak to some other people before then, some other people's perspectives of who he was, so he didn't appear to be a raving, fanatical, gun crazy lunatic. You can do that, and then once you've kind of gone through that, then you can kind of start saying, okay, well, here's why we think what they're saying isn't true, and then you can you go through the timeline, you go through the evidence, I mean, I know it's going to be really long, but really,
It's a 2-hour show. We have 2 hours.
I mean, to get the benefit, that's what people really need to know. They really need to know, this is why, first of all, this is why we're here. This is why we believe, why we're continuing to fight, because this is why we believe he didn't do this. So you've got to give reasons why you believe, and then and you can follow with, because look at the evidence, and then you can kind of discuss the evidence and and lead further on into it and progressively go along.
Nice.
Well, I had created titles and for episodes of the blog radio, for instance, like false narratives, bad actors, the gray state puppet masters, disproving a documentary, magnificent paleo, setting the murder stage, setting the crime scene investigation, stage, aka evidence tampering, and another brick in the wall. Just basically, for that one, it was kind of a metaphor of all the brick walls that we keep coming into.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, that sounds really good because leading with the false narrative and then following up with, well, here's why we believe it's a false narrative, and here's, because one of the things that I think that you would want people to know is why you're here. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why do we believe it's a false narrative? But we have to kind of explain what the false narrative is, and then follow with explaining why you think it is. And I mean, you could even follow through with like a means, motive, opportunity type thing. I mean, you don't have to necessarily name any people, but I mean, you could say, yes, there are possible people that you could say had means, motive, and opportunity.
sure.
You know what? Can I interject something?
Sure.
Sure.
This was my thought, that it would start off with the picture of him coming out of Hollywood, jumping in the air with a script or whatever, and then going from that point, and then going to the background of, him and Carmel and Rania and that kind of thing, and then bring the point across that he was murdered. You understand how I'm saying it? Because of the fact that, look at this young guy. He was all excited. Make sure that meme is on there. It's a new year, that kind of thing. And then, no, it didn't happen. I'm not sure.
You just don't write that post-it saying 6 days until the new year, and he's planning ahead, and then turn around and kill your family and yourself.
Right.
You just don't do that.
That's why I think that's such a grabbing thing, is just seeing his picture of his face when it was signed, the whole deal went through and everything like that, and then progress into possibly the emails about the sign-off of Danny Mason, and like kind of get into it a little bit with that, but then all of a sudden, he shot and killed his family. No, and there I think you could explain why this is important, that somebody reopens the investigation and looks at it, with a different eye, and say, hey, this isn't possible. He can't shoot himself in the mouth with his left hand at that angle and blow off the left side of his head. It does not make sense.
And then also have the bullet go off to the right.
Right.
With his left
exactly.
side of his head.
Right.
That's just not possible.
Right. And the other thing about it, too, the crime scene cleanup crew would have noticed that hole in the wall, because they check every inch of the place for blood spatter. So I can't imagine that they would have missed a blaring hole in the ceiling.
Correct.
I do think somebody went in there and shot that in the ceiling to make it look, like it was his. And since somebody had a gun like David, it is possible. So that was my thought.
That's a great thought. That's a great thought. Yeah.
And I'm kind of digressing off of that, and then I'll be quiet. But
You better not be quiet.
Because you mentioned that no dead air.
That's right. It's Radio 101.
You mentioned that when you know, as you were talking about that, the one thing that came to my mind is I just kept thinking about, you know, the whole scene. The whole scene is just so bizarre. But I think one of the most difficult aspects of dealing with this and then trying to introduce someone else to it, even though it's possible, is like having to look at it with dissected pieces like of the puzzle, like, you know, a picture here and a picture there. If we had some person that was like a computer whiz that could do like a, you know, three-dimensional rendering of the setup of like the house, and then, or even an architect that can actually make a model, so you could actually visibly walk through it and go, okay, there was blood spatter here, but there wasn't blood spatter over there. You know, there was some here, but there wasn't there. To see it as a big picture, like if you were actually in the room yourself, I think that would be so helpful visually. I mean, I know that we probably can't do it, but it's just, I was just dreaming.
Yeah. It's a good dream.
I think it's a great idea to get somebody in there who could do 3D and do the crime scene. That's just, it would be perfect for the new documentary.
Yeah, what's the status on the house? Is it back up for sale right now? Do we know?
It was, and a person bought it, I think at the end of the summer, I think. And so I don't think it's still for sale, but it is sold.
Oh, I'm going to look it up on Zillow.
Because just visually trying to piece it together from looking at pictures, because earlier I was looking at a picture and I had to send it to Sophia because I was like, I don't understand, because it was at a different angle, and so I was like, I can't see this right. I'm not getting this, and she had to explain it to me, and sometimes that's what gets confusing, because different pictures from different angles, things look different, you know. And so when you're just taking a picture from here and a picture from there and a picture from here, it's possible, but it would be so much easier if you had something right there in your face that was the whole thing. And I mean, it wouldn't even have to be gigantic, you know, just so it would illustrate almost like you were walking through and walking the crime scene, like what people usually do when something happens. They walk the crime scene and they kind of mentally go through. They treat it as a homicide before they determine it to be a murder-suicide, and they kind of walk through and kind of try and piece together based on where they see the first blood, you know, and they kind of follow a trail to piece together what happened. And that's why I think if there was something like that, it would make it easier to see, to be able to grasp it and see why it is so messed up.
Well, I know they do have crime scene reenactment programs that they do use like in court and stuff like that. So you would have to have access to something like that, and I don't know anybody that would be able to, access that. Maybe Catherine would.
Would have to be someone that knew how to do like AutoCAD or something, I think.
Yeah.
I could look into it to see if I know of anyone that would be able to do it or knows anyone that could do it.
Yeah. Well, I know there is a program in police departments and stuff like that, but I'm not sure how you could access it.
Well, anyone, because even architects, they
Right.
use those programs to do
Yeah, the 3D mapping. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, basically, you would just basically be building the rooms, and then you would just have them place, things like where, like if the blood spatter on the wall that was close to the floor, that would be there, and and you could even have just certain things. If they were small things like the blood on the dishwasher, you could just have like the words and then the arrow pointing down saying
Right.
blood on
Right.
dishwasher door, so that they would be able to see how it's so muddled and scattered. It's just chaotic.
Yeah, it is. I in my head, I have a theory as to what might have happened, but I'm not sure if it's real. But I think Comel was by the kitchen, and I think Randy was in her bed. And I think Camille got hit over the head, and there was just a couple of blood specks. And then when she went out of the kitchen towards the living room, she got hit again, and that's why there's some, it looks like brain matter and her hair on the recliner, and then she fell, and she bled out on the recliner, but they never tested that blood, so we don't know whose blood it is.
Right. It's too bad they didn't test that.
Yeah,
And they still have the samples. They just need to test it.
that's why it has to be reopened, because they have to test it just to find out whose blood it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because you were scrolling through the pictures, I just thought of something.
Mhm.
I don't know if I mentioned this on one of the calls or if I've only mentioned it to Sophia. One thing that I thought I was just thinking about one day that was really strange was the presents being dropped off on the front porch. With that check. It's not an extremely new thing where packages get stolen off of people's front porch and stuff. So, like,
Yeah,
if I were
poor
gonna drop something off at someone's house, and I knew the people, I would put it on their back porch.
Maybe it's a
I
safe
wouldn't leave
neighborhood, though. Maybe it's a neighborhood where, they don't have to worry about that.
No neighborhood is safe.
Correct. Nobody's neighborhood.
I know neighborhoods, I'm not going to say where, but I know neighborhoods where they leave their front door open.
The nice neighborhoods is where the people go to steal the packages off of the porch.
Because they leave everything open, right?
But
I'll have you know that we live in a really nice side of town. And lately, the break-ins and stuff have been outrageous. Even the theft. I mean, we even had our storage unit broken into, and our storage unit is not more than a few feet away from our apartment. And that was broken into, and things were stolen out of it during the night. And we live in a gated community, and it
I
still
think
happens.
it's weird because, I mean, I'd be really concerned about that check.
Yeah, I mean, who leaves a $14,000 check on the front porch?
I mean, I would be like, did you get the check? Did you get the check? I mean,
And that didn't happen.
That's just weird. It's
Yeah,
almost like the presents were placed there possibly so that someone would see the presents and go, oh, those presents have been there an awful long time.
Yeah, let's look at some of
We
those
better
presents.
check on them.
And could you imagine that conversation between Dan Jr. and Dan Sr.? Oh, did you leave the gifts? Yeah, I sure did. They left them on the front porch. And yet that stuff is never cashed. And how did Dan Sr. say, you what? You left them on the front porch?
You left a $14,000 check on the front porch? Are you crazy?
But I'm not going to call you 20 times a day to find out if you got the stuff.
Exactly.
You know, in the documentary, Dan Jr. said he was driving over there Christmas Eve, and he was going to tell David that he loved him, but then he decided not to. But I'm not sure if that meant that was the day that he dropped off the presents, or yeah, because that doesn't make sense because he couldn't remember what day, but in the documentary he said that.
Yep.
Well, wasn't he over with his dad during that time? And he was given the gifts
Yeah,
so
they
that
had
he
a
could
family.
drive them back.
Yeah, they had like a family Christmas thing that David and Kamel and Rania didn't go to for whatever reason, which I also think is, strange. There is something there. There was tension. There was something going on, but for them to make that leap that this is, because they were separating themselves from everybody, that it makes sense that they killed themselves is just crazy. I mean, okay, I understand why people would think that at first, but after looking through all of this, it just makes you wonder if they even looked at any of this stuff. Did they even bother? Did they even care? Do they really care?
I wonder if somebody. Okay, conspiracy theory here.
Uh-oh, red flag.
What if they were being held hostage and they didn't go because of that? I mean, David stopped making phone calls and text messages in November. Kamel's last phone call was, I think, the 16th or 19th of December. I don't know.
Yeah, and nobody's seen them. Nobody sees them. It's not heavily mentioned. The people that did claim to have seen him last, they're not talking about it. Does Sean Wright in the documentary? Does Sean Wright say that he was one of the last people, probably the last person to see David? Does he go there?
Yeah.
Okay. What does he say?
He
Do you
mentioned
remember?
that the middle of November was when he last saw David.
No, that's not true. It was December. He was there, from what he told me, and I'm sure he told other people that too. He was there in December. He was there after Hendrix. Hendrix also said that he was there in early December, and then in the documentary, all of their dates, everything changes. That's not normal. You guys know exactly when you were there. No, the truth doesn't change, and the truth is that they're just lying, because that's the only thing that is true, is that they're telling people one story and then they turn around and tell a whole completely different story. That is called a lie. However you want to slice it and dice it. You don't need to do that
Yep.
if you're telling the truth. So, and then
Well,
they
yeah,
all
that's
return.
why.
They all return to the scene of the crime. What's that old saying about? Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, that's true. A lot of people will inject themselves. Guilty people will inject themselves into an investigation so they can see how much they know and what's going on. And, as far as like the lying goes, that's one reason why detectives, when they're questioning people, they'll ask people the same question over and over again, but they'll ask it in a different way. It'll be the same question, but it'll be worded differently, because a lot of times it'll trip people up and they'll answer differently. And that's a big way how they can figure out if someone's being deceptive or not.
That
Right.
doesn't seem to happen in this case. Greg,
Yeah.
would you be willing to go back to the group? I made a post a little bit ago
Sure.
tonight while we were on.
Absolutely.
I think it would be interesting to discuss. You've brought this up before, by the way,
I'll just.
and I noticed it again when I was looking through the police reports.
Okay. The brown paper bag is stapled, everyone. So $14,000 were stapled inside of here. Don't you feel better now? Doesn't this feel safer? No.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
think it's safe.
know modern security.
It's a very thick brown bag. Okay, you conspiracy theorists.
It has handles too.
Yes, it does have handles.
Oh,
Very
was that
thick.
the handled one that was
Yes.
stapled?
Yeah.
It wasn't the police evidence bag. It was. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've got a migraine.
Let me go back to that one, and then we'll look at the. There it
It's
is.
a combination.
It's stapled like 4 or 5. I mean, it's heavily stapled, not just stapled like once or twice. It's like completely stapled.
Right.
Well, being a thief, I know I'd be deterred by the staples. I'm
I
being
would.
sarcastic.
You're not a staple. I've never stapled a paper bag, as far as I can remember. But if I had $14,000 check, you're damn right I'd staple. I would duct tape this thing. Nobody would be getting into that.
They're magical combination staples
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
with a safe. You can't just.
It's
break it.
anti-theft deterrent.
Each staple tells a story. Yeah.
Anti-trust paper bag.
Anti-trust. There you go.
Might as well just write on there, please don't steal me.
Please take me, is what it's basically saying.
There you go.
Yeah. Take my money. Okay, let's look at the new activity. I'm going to sort. I think this is the one you're talking about, but I'm still going to sort by recent posts, just to make sure. Okay, Sophia says, whoa, let me go back. I don't like that. Okay, Sophia says, why is there a PD number, logistics number, and an ID number for just these and not everyone in the AVPD interview? Let's look at this. Okay, so we got one for Danny Mason. Got one for Mitch Heil. Wait, who's at the bottom of that one? Anyone? Who's the person under Mitch Heil? Or is that Mitch Heil still?
No, it's the child.
Oh, okay.
I tried to make sure that they were connected.
Oh, good, thank you. Sean Wright this is the only time that he's mentioned, and then he's mentioned in a summary. There's like 4 or 5 people in a summary that are mentioned. Oh, we talked with them, but they don't have anything of value, and if we need to, we can always contact them later. Dan Crowley.
Was there one more? Okay, Dan Crowley.
Mm-hmm. That's the guys. So those guys were, and of those ones, the only ones that that there's a report, um, like a thorough report at least, is Mitch Heil, not Sean Wright, which I thought was very strange. Daniel Crowley and Daniel Mason. Those are the three that are heavily focused on. But there are a lot of other people that they did speak to that are not really mentioned here. So I don't know. I don't know why that would be.
But that PD number or ID and then logistics number or whatever, what does that even mean? It's only on certain people, and nobody else that they interviewed or that's mentioned in the police report has that information added to their names. It's just those that I was able to get screenshots of.
I see. Hmm.
And it can't be because of police, like arrest records or anything like that, because there's some other people that were also interviewed that have arrest records and tickets that don't have that next to their name. So it can't be because of being arrested or getting a ticket.
Right. No, it's got Dan Crowley Sr. here, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's the strangest thing. Well, there's so many strange things.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Another one.
Maybe somebody can help us with that. Thanks for posting that. It'd be good to know. Yeah. This has come up. There was something different about Sean Wright's that was a little bit different than everybody else's. That was throwing me off. Because he has a police number and a logistics number. Everybody else seems to have one, if I remember correctly. So he had like an extra one that was kind of like, well, why does he have two numbers here? So, anyways.
Going to his to see. Oh yeah, you're right. PD number, then police number, and it's there. PD number, logistics number, and then another number.
Does that mean they talked to him twice, maybe? And I don't know. I really don't know what that means.
Informant? That means that all of them would have to be informants.
Well, if they're informants, that's a whole nother wild goose chase, right?
Yeah, conspiracy number how many?
Well, it's not the only time
How many have we hit?
Yeah, it's not the only time that it's been brought up that some of these people might be informants. And there's many different levels of what an informant is and everything. So, and very interesting though.
That just these guys have it.
It's interesting that those guys. It's interesting that Daniel Crowley Sr. is included with that. So they don't have one of these for David's sister when they talk to Sidra, when they talk to some of the other friends.
Not for Judy, not for Colin, not for any of the neighbors. I mean, if Dan Jr. had been talked to and his information is there, he definitely would have had the PD number and logistics.
So Junior doesn't
if
have.
it was for
Junior
being
doesn't have.
arrested or a ticket, and if anybody was to say, oh, it's because he's been in trouble with the law in the past, and that's why it's there. No. If he is in the police report And I have to go back and look at it because I don't remember if he was.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if Dan Jr. He should have one of those PD logistics number 2, right? I mean, what
I'm
makes it
going
so
back right
different?
now
Okay, you might have to add that
because
one to this if he has one.
I'll come back to you
Okay.
if you want to move on because
Yeah,
I'm
that
going
was.
through right now. Well, it's like Chris Klein doesn't have one. Chris Peck didn't have one. Because all these guys, if you pull up their backgrounds, drinking and driving or getting pulled over for a ticket, stuff like that, you would think that if that's what the PD number, the logistics number is meaning, then they should have one too.
I wonder if David Crowley ever had anything like that. Any um, criminal record, just a misdemeanor or anything like that.
Mhm.
I don't. Did
Yeah,
you
he
ever
did.
look into? Did he? What did David Crowley
Mhm.
have?
Just driving. I think it was speed
Drunk
limit or
driving, like
something.
a DUI, or just like
No,
speeding,
no,
just traffic violations?
traffic violation. Yeah,
Hmm.
it was
Interesting.
never for impaired driving.
Okay. Yeah, it's the impaired drivers that kind of concern me a little bit. you know, don't drive it
And
home.
somebody's all blacked out here. There's a couple of them all blacked out. Oh, why did they
Oh,
black out the?
we have that in another document in the BCA 485. Whatever you're seeing that is blacked out there
Mhm.
is not blacked out in the BCA 485 document.
Okay.
If there's a certain one, I could probably help you cross-reference quickly. I do
Yeah,
want to
there is
say
a PD
do want to say hi to everybody
number.
in the chat room. We got some really great, nice chats. I mean, I love this chat room. We have 16 people here. Everybody's being cool. Everybody's being very respectful. Everybody's, I just love that. Some of these other chat rooms that I go into, I'm just like, why am I even here? It's either just everybody trying to prove their theory or just a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about. So, there's nothing wrong with that, but just a lot of really great chat. So thank you everybody who is in the chat. Really appreciate all of your help, and we're moving forward. We're definitely going to need your help this year. We're gonna make a big push. There's going to be a lot of things that we're going to try to do to keep this case going this year. 2020 is going to be we're at 5 years, and today is January 9th. We are about a week away, and next week our show will not be on Thursday. It will purposely be on Friday, most likely, because that will be the date that the bodies were found on January 17th, 2015. Exactly 5 years. So I don't know what we should do special for that show. Um, I've been thinking about maybe going through the crime scene photos. I don't know. I think we should do. Sometimes in order to go forward, we got to take a few steps back. All right, I'm gonna
It would be
close
nice
that.
to kind of post photos of the family together, and maybe at the beginning or at the very end. I'm looking through here. Teresa Shepard, she's like, I believe, 72 years old. She also had a PD number in logistics. I need to add that to the group. Greg, do you have any updates on when the book is going to be released? Did you say that already?
Nah, I mean, I want to get it out by the 17th. I don't think that's realistic right now. Maybe, it's still possible, but that was my goal, was to get it out no later than January 17th. I could release the PDF version by then. There's a few things that I did go back, and so I'm proofreading it once more. So I did find a few things that I needed to change, but I can change those within 24 hours. So hopefully by next week, the book will be out. There is a great company called ACX, and what they do is, for a fee, of course, they can turn your written book into a audiobook. So I'm testing it out with my 911 book, and if that goes well, then I'm going to do the same with this David Crowley book. So audiobook might not be out until about June, but there will be a audiobook on this that will be available on audible.com and on iTunes. So, but
That's exciting.
yeah, I'm really happy about that. I hope it all works out well. I'm still kind of timid about it, but I figure I'll test it out with this book first, and then kind of learn, what I did like, what worked, what didn't work, all that stuff. But I'm really excited about having that reach, because there are many people that go and look for audiobooks on audible.com, and they're looking for books like this. They're looking to read. They don't have time to actually physically read a physical book. I totally get that. I love reading physical books, and I enjoy it much more, but because of time, it's sometimes it's just a lot easier for me to read this first, and then to listen to it first, and if I really like it, then I'll just buy it, basically. So, but yeah, I'm really excited about that. But the PDF will be free, so anybody who does want to just read it, that will be free, and I am strongly considering just releasing a PDF version free for everybody on the 17th. But I need to go through it one more time, so let's see how fast that I can read. I don't have any handwriting samples to send you yet. I don't know. I'm very nervous about that. One day.
Well, when you do, send some wine too. I'm low.
Okay. Good. I'll send both. Oh, I actually know the perfect wine to send to you as well.
Awesome.
It will
I
complement.
look forward to receive both. Yeah, I'm never getting that in the handwriting samples.
No. Hey, Sophia.
Yes.
Tracy has on the chat about if you can pull up the PD logistic number to see what it is on Google.
I tried that several months ago to figure out what it was, and I actually think one of the numbers brought me back to an online version of the
Hey
police report.
guys, I'll be right back. Go ahead and keep on talking, but if you don't hear from me, I'll be right back in a couple minutes. Okay.
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 Because I was looking at badge numbers, and I was trying to figure out what that PD number was, and one of the numbers that I entered brought me to, there's like a downloaded, it's weird, it's a weird format, and you click on it, and it's of the police report.
Okay, yeah, I know.
That's so odd.
That person that I've been talking to, I asked him, and he said he's pretty sure that that's their computer-aided dispatch CAD system. Every person related to a call, it gets loaded into the system and is assigned a unique ID number. PD equals police, FD equals fire. Logis is the CAD program they are using. He said, that he's pretty sure that's what it is, but it might be something else, but he's almost certain that's what it is.
And so that they filed something with the police? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it could be just like something that they use to file, like, even if they're putting in that they interviewed them or talked to them, or if it says every person related to a call gets loaded in the system, is assigned a unique ID number.
I just find it odd that not everybody mentioned has a number like that.
He found it odd too. He said he has no idea why. He said, don't know why everyone wouldn't have one unless their system lets them choose if they are going to pull an ID or not.
Oh, like if it's like somebody important to their case or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay, the ones that do have them, who all was at the house when the neighbors called and saw people over at the house?
Chris Klein admitted to being there. He said that Dan Sr. was there with him, but Dan Sr. said no, he wasn't. I think Mason Hendricks was there, and that's what's odd, is because Chris Klein doesn't have it. Mason doesn't have it. I don't think he's mentioned in here. Dan Sr. does. Sean Wright does. I'm looking through it right now.
You know who was
Judy.
there who was there when they showed up?
Nobody.
Oh, they had already left. So
Mhm.
did they go talk to Dan Sr.?
No, supposedly a description of the vehicle was given to the police, and that's how they tracked down Chris Klein.
Well, that's interesting that they chose not to give him a number.
Correct. And then when he finally did contact them in February, that's when he told them about the bullet hole at that time.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Did anybody secure the back sliding door after the cops were there? Because I'm wondering if that's how they got in.
Yeah, I think that they did secure the residence, both the front and the back.
Then how did they get in the house?
They had a key code or a button push code that they put on the front door, I believe. And they gave that number to Dan Sr. when they contacted him and gave him the news about the family. And that's how they were able to get into the house.
Did you notice this? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry?
No, I go ahead.
One thing that I just noticed is only one, I'm making sure, but on Mitch Hiles, if you look underneath the case number, it says title, it says homicide. None of the other ones have it.
Interesting. Sean White. I'm trying to find his again.
Well, and that's because let's see. Mitch Hiles says supplement, has supplement on it.
Yes, the supplement is what they have on the top of every page.
But what's weird is, like, if you look at, I just noticed too, the other ones, unless it's cut off, the other ones don't have case numbers.
It is cut off. There's a big space right there between supplement and report generated by.
Okay.
It's 2 different pages. And so I'm trying to, where did you see the homicide on there?
Underneath the case number, filed
case number
to the
title.
Right, follow across where it says supplement, follow it across case number, and then look under case number.
That's a good catch.
But didn't all the reports say homicide on them in the beginning? I thought they did, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember right.
I'm in the forms. I can go up there and find out what it says. I'm sorry to everybody in the chat room for not being able to see this. I'm not controlling the screen.
We can talk about him since he's not here, because he was talking about me. So
he said only nice things about you.
Well, I
didn't know. That's not what I heard.
I didn't say bad things about him. We could just talk
at the very top, it says that it was homicide, and I guess it was because Rainey and
it was. Yeah.
Kamel.
Rania.
Okay, is there anything else anybody wants to discuss?
I think it's really interesting where it says roles. It says mentioned.
What is the roles part? Because I've received police reports from Apple Valley and from other states, and the roles has never, ever been a part of those police reports. So that's just another oddity in this case.
I want to know how the Christmas light was underneath the couch. That's still driving me nuts.
Okay, you guys done talking about me now, or what? Can I join back in?
Oh, no, you need to go away. It's a little bit longer.
I said I was going to talk about you, and
it's payback.
Just assumed I was going to say bad things about you, but I was just going to say things so that when you replayed it,
Cruel. You are cruel. That's okay. I see how it is.
And she's like, well, Greg was talking about me.
That's right. It's payback. It's cool.
He's just ignoring us over there playing with his cat.
Yeah, I took a little nap. I took a cat nap. No, I'm back.
No, you're just getting a refill.
Yeah, right. Had to get a big one. Had to find the big glass. You know those big glasses that is really like you can put the whole wine bottle into one cup and just say I'm only drinking one glass of
Mhm.
wine tonight. And it's true.
With a straw.
With the straw.
Push the whole
No.
box in there with you.
No, there are some rules to wine drinking that we have to follow. So.
Yeah, but if it's not good, you always use a straw.
If I'm using a straw, there's a
You
big
pot.
problem. Big problem. You will trigger a lot of wine drinkers if you show up at a wine bar with your own straw. Well, stream is still
Well, we just
going.
had
We
a
still got
store.
15 people here, and I'm just making sure. I don't know why I lost the stream. Now I'm so nervous that I'm gonna lose the stream. Seems okay.
We have a store here in Corpus that just opened up, and it's Total Wine and More, and they give out free samples. I'm so gonna head over there this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Well, we were talking about wine. I just wanted to try it out. Oh, that's a great photo.
That's the laptop. It's gotta be
Mhm.
the infamous laptop.
Isn't that one of the police officers?
Well, there were. I think the police officers involved in that shooting. I think they were from Buffalo, Minnesota. So it's a little bit different. There's the Bilderberg. I don't know. I don't know. Let me see what you guys are seeing, so I don't act like I'm in the future.
She's right in front of Camille.
Okay. Yeah.
Not the one, not the extras in the riot uniform.
Okay. This is so weird. My stream my replay, the one I'm looking at, just looks weird. But as long as everybody can confirm we're still live, we're good. I'll just roll with it.
See that picture of her? She does not look like a downtrodden, unhappy wife to me. I mean, people can fake smiles, but you can't really fake happiness in your eyes. And she just looks extremely happy in that picture. I mean,
Yep.
I mean, you can usually see in someone's eyes if they're strained, you know, even if someone's forcing a smile. That she just doesn't look like. I mean, I'm sure they had their stresses, as does everyone. I mean, I don't think that there's anyone that doesn't, but I don't think it was to the point to where, you know, you want to address, the pact theory, to the point to where they just decided they were going to just end it all together. They just don't look like or appear like people that would just suddenly decide to do that. I mean,
No, they don't. No. And that whole thing is very flimsy of this is why we think that the pack theory is true. And that is just, I mean, that just sealed the deal. I think it just, especially with Kamel's side, I think that's what really put some serious distance between the two sides, between David's side and Kamel's side. So let me go here. Looks like we have 16 people. Yeah, it's okay. Just weird. I don't know what YouTube is doing. YouTube is really pissing me off today. But these are just some of the different slides some of the different images pulled from the sloppumentary, some of the stuff that they covered. This one right here, um, yeah, it's just, there's the 2012 script, but a lot of it is just, I mean, everything jumps from 2012, and then all of a sudden we're in 2015, everybody's dead, and David is guilty. There's a huge gap missing that they try to fill by having David's dad talk about, read from a script, and then it's like, and the next day David kills his family and kills. And it's like, no, nobody knows when these people died. We have no idea when any of these people died. They could have been dead for a long time. There's some people. I mean, we've had theories from before Christmas to they were killed on January 10th. I mean, it's a huge range of different theories, and the decomp of the body should really help tell the story. When the last internet activity is supposed to be December 26th. So if that's true, then there's a huge time gap here. And like Sophia has covered about the whole phones, when was their last phone call, all that stuff. And it's not just about who's calling them, it's about when they're calling out too, and who they're calling out to. And we're just seeing so many inconsistencies that if we can see it, the investigators must see it. I look at Dan Crowley Sr., he sees it. Looking at his face right now, I see it in him. I see the fear. I see I don't know what he's scared of, but he looks scared. He does not look like he looks like somebody who woke up and found out that his son is dead. Doesn't know why, and I don't know why he's so silent and so quiet on this. Maybe that's his personality. Some people are like that. They just kind of go into their dark zone and just don't talk about it. Some people are like that. We had a member of the group at one time who was a bartender and had served Dan Senior drinks, and I forget what the name of the bar. Tried to reach out to the person. They didn't really have too much to really say, but Dan Crowley Sr. mentioned to this person about the documentary. Somehow they got started talking about grandchildren, etc., and he brings it up, and it was just a really weird situation. It's not too often you're going to bring that up to a total stranger, but you have a couple drinks, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? It's confession time, and you got to start talking about it. So it's an interesting
what exactly
thing.
did he say? Did
Just he
quote
just
him, or?
he basically, I don't know off the top of my head, but he basically referred her to the sloppumentary, and that was basically it. And he was uncomfortable. He was kind of crying and kind of very sad. That was the impression that I got from talking with that person, which has been a long time. So, and you get a lot of that. You get a lot of that where people, kind of try to help. They try to help us. They want to, let people know who the family was, what they were like, and then they have problems. All of a sudden, they're being intimidated. They're being questioned. And, everything gets turned back on them, where they just say, man, I'm just, I'm not going to deal with this. And they even blame us. Like we must have some part in it or something. So it's been an interesting journey with this case. I've never come across a case like this, and I never want to come across a case like this ever. And there should never be a case like this. And I'm hoping that what our effort to do and what we're doing here will help make sure that a case like this never happens again, that the situations never happen. This is not something to just be swept under the rug and just say, well, okay, the police messed up, etc., and they did a bad job, but let's not talk about it. Like, you have to learn from these things, and you can't learn if you're not willing to talk about what you did wrong, what went wrong. And there's legal stuff, I get that. I understand why the cops don't want to talk to us, and all of that. It's fine, whatever. But I don't get how they can sleep at night. How can they live with themselves? How can they look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what, I did the best that I possibly could?
One thing I'm sorry.
It's okay. Have there been any police officers that worked the case that have since left the department?
Right?
Yes, there were two of them. It looks like we're having
Technical difficulties.
some technical difficulties again. Yeah.
Have you tried reaching out to them?
To
I personally haven't.
yeah.
The two that have left? I mean, the possibility of reaching out. I do know in other cases, some of other cases that I've seen and heard about, that sometimes people that leave the department, they'll actually come forward and share quite a bit of information. So, I mean, if
That would be
you
great.
haven't tried reaching out to them, you might want to see, if they'd be willing to talk to you.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking at the YouTube output, and there does seem to be a problem. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. I don't know what that means. Okay.
It just keeps buffering.
Yeah. So I don't know. With the buffering, is the audio okay, or is it the video? I know it's the video, but how is the audio? Is the audio choppy, or is it just the video that's kind of buffering?
I think it was the audio that was choppy. I think
that's horrible. Okay. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Will it be that way when on the replay, or will that just be for the live?
The replay should be okay, but it's hard to really say. And it's coming from YouTube. It's not like it's coming from the program that I use. The program that I'm using, that's working fine. YouTube is just jacking with us.
See, his face right now, Dan Senior's face, that's the same look he had when he read the very end of the script for the December 24th, and David was planning out the future, and then later that morning he killed his wife and his daughter and then himself. And then he flips to the next page to see if there's anything else for him to read. And there's nothing, and he has that same look. God, I do feel for him, though. I really do.
What I find strange about that whole thing is when he's reading and talking about stuff, he actually even adds that they had made plans beyond the date that they supposedly died. So he even said that was pointed out. And so, it's almost like when he reads that final thing, it's just like this look of defeat on his face.
Yeah. That's just, I feel for him. Out of all of them, he is the one I feel for.
Yeah.
And this Sarah Hodgton or whatever, one of the females that was interviewed, that's supposedly Camel's friend, she was never interviewed by the police. She's in the documentary, and I cannot find anything regarding her. I can't find her in the white pages. I can't find her in my backgrounds. Nothing. It's like she doesn't exist. And it doesn't matter if it's a married name or a maiden name. If she lived in the United States, she would be picked up on those services. And
Oh, so
she
Sophia,
was
what
leading.
about I'm sorry. What about under the registry for the dietitian?
I'm sorry?
The registry for dietitians, you know how they have to register in the state that they're working?
She wasn't a dietitian.
She worked at the.
Oh, I thought
There were two friends that were interviewed.
Mm-hmm. It's not
Okay.
Sarah Johnson. It's the other lady with the longer hair.
okay.
And-
Okay.
And
I
she's
thought
the
they
one
all
who's
worked
leading
together.
the whole narrative of Camille looking like she wanted to, like she was miserable. That she met
Yeah.
up with her in November, that she was miserable, and she just wanted to keep her there and talk to her much longer and everything. And that David didn't want any more children and stuff. She was leading all that narrative along with Joseph Seaton. And
Right.
I can't find anything regarding her.
I think
okay.
she was.
I thought she had worked with her, so that's why I was confused.
Yeah, I'm gonna check and see if she was mentioned by Kamel's sister or by Kamel's sister's friend. I think she was mentioned. They were kind of somebody. I remember talking with somebody, and they were like, "We don't know, this. We don't know who this person is. Almost like, why is she here?"
Hmm.
I do remember talking with somebody, and they were like, "Who is this person?" Like she wasn't that close with Kamel. The same way that Joseph Seaton might have not been that close with David. I don't know. Um, that's
Well,
interesting.
there were
huh?
some photos of them working together or working out together in their backyard. So and taking photos even of
Mhm.
themselves. David was like recording and taking some actual photos of Joseph Seaton as he was working out. And so I think that they really were friends and hung out together. But this other lady, I don't know who she is, but she's the very first person in that documentary to start steering the narrative to abuse and all that.
Hmm.
And I
Yes, kitty.
Very, we're very active tonight. Okay, let's keep moving on. I'm just checking the. I'm checking the back the stream on YouTube. There is a heavy lag. I mean, it's way behind where we are talking, but it looks like it's. I don't hear any audio issues so far. I just see just some. I don't know. I'm just gonna keep moving. We'll keep going on, I guess, because I did want to talk about the documentary just a little bit here too. I don't want to go too much longer. Maybe another 10, 20 minutes or so, but. I did want to. One of the things I was hoping to get Christian on. I know he wasn't able to join us here, so maybe he can join us Friday. But what I don't want, because I know we talked about kind of things that we do want. Let's talk about some of the things that we don't want this docuseries to be. Personally, I don't want it to be a response to Eric Nelson's film. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I agree.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
I
I
just wanted
agree.
to tell the truth.
And if it
Yeah, I do
happens
too.
to, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying I agree as well.
I mean, if it goes there,
And
which it could go there, it might go there. Great, but I just want it. I don't want people to think that we're trying to create a response to that film, because the best response to that is just to just you don't need a good response to it. It speaks for itself. I think the thing is what people wanted to get out of that documentary. I think we have a good opportunity to create that. What people want from a real docu-series on this case.
I just would like for it to cover the case and cover the truth.
right. I think that's all you can do is put out the truth and let everybody come to their own conclusion, and hopefully it'll lead to somebody saying, "Hey, maybe we should look at this case again."
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
I would think that's your point. And you know, I don't think it should go into talking about the so-called abuse. I don't think it should portray Rania as being like a little bit off.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was horrible.
It was dishonest.
Yeah, and if I, ever saw Eric Nelson, oh, believe you me, because that is horrible to do. That little child, and then you portray something like that. That's just awful.
And what do you guys think
Did you get the
about?
feeling?
Go ahead, Sophia.
Oh, I was just wondering if any other got the feeling that they portrayed David as some type of autistic killer in a way.
Yeah.
That's brutal. That's a brutal thought.
Well, I mean, because they all said that he worked on a different level. He was
Interesting. I never considered that.
militant.
Yeah.
Joseph didn't use the word militant. And I think Danny August Mason also used that word.
Wow.
Yeah, and he said that if you didn't get it the first time, he got really mad. If he had explained it to you again, and it was like, that doesn't look like what I've seen, but I didn't know him.
Well, you watched the live streams that David had put up on YouTube. He doesn't portray that at all.
Right.
He seems very open to everybody there, and working pleasantly with everybody, and I just don't see that. And he streamed a lot of their action scenes and filming.
Well, and he was actually very attentive to Rania when they were doing some of that, like, because she was really excited. He was saying, "Watch, Daddy, watch, Daddy," and he was trying to talk, and he took the time out of him talking. He stopped and he acknowledged her, and then he went back to doing what he was doing.
Right.
They show that in the very beginning, and near the end when they start doing his decline, there was a part where Camille was sitting in front of the TV and Rania was much smaller, a toddler basically, and she's kind of crying, and he snaps at Camille at that moment. And then she asks, should I look at her? And,
hug her or whatever.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah.
It's so out of order, because that's not even close to when they died. That was years before, and it was late at night. He was trying to film and everything. I wonder how many takes it took. Anyway, it just annoys me how Eric Nelson chopped everything up, and it was just supposed to be creative editing.
Creative garbage.
Yeah, there we go.
Did Kamel's mother pass away?
No.
Because when I saw that, pardon me?
No, she didn't.
No. And
Okay, because I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sophia.
I live in Texas, and the hospice laws are you do not get put on hospice unless you have less than a certain amount of time to live. And once you're put on hospice, you cannot have life-saving procedures or treatments.
Right.
And she had surgeries, she had cancer treatments, yet she was supposedly on hospice.
Well, I think every state is different with hospice. I know Ohio changed it. Florida was like that at one point, and they've changed it now too. I'm not sure
they live in
because-
Texas,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
why I'm bringing it up.
yeah, and because I was just really surprised to see, it was the Crowley Medical Fund, GoFundMe, and then seeing that, well, there was $8,000, but then it's gone. And, Danny Mason said that she was on her deathbed. So that's why I was kind of, what is going on here? And I think I asked Greg before if she passed away, and he said no, but I just wanted to recheck because it just seems very odd to me that happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think she has ovarian cancer,
Right.
and that's what my
Yep.
sister passed away of.
Oh,
And she was sick
sorry.
at the same time that, well, it's okay. I mean, she was, at the end, she was very sick.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I'm just glad that she's no longer in pain.
Right.
But it really upsets me when somebody will use a cancer diagnosis to fit their own needs. And it just seems like that's what was being done to keep her mother away from knowing the truth.
Right.
Because you don't get put on hospice and still be alive 5 years later in the state of Texas, unless there was some miracle cure. And if there is, then I'm extremely happy for her that she found it.
Yeah. I don't know. That was all odd, that whole thing. And I did look him up on Dan Jr. on LinkedIn, and he owns that investment company to restore houses and personal trainer and all that stuff now. Very interesting.
Oh, yeah. They're
What
very
does Dan
interesting characters.
Yeah, what does Dan Sr. do? Because I know in the video they said it was in a law office, but I wasn't sure if he was a lawyer.
Not exactly sure. Greg?
Yeah, he does some. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's I know he works in Germany and he's involved with some patents, and I forget what the company he actually works for is, but it's something he's got some patents on how your cell phone, how it shatters, the glass that shatters. So he's got some patents on that, I believe.
Uh, so he probably is a patent attorney then.
I thought he was, and I didn't see him as an attorney. From what I know, he was an inventor. So he's like a creator. You know, he's somebody who kind of created created things in his garage, and that led to one thing led to another, and blah blah blah. That's
okay.
the very little that I know about him.
Okay. Well, I just because when I saw that they taped it in a law office, I was thinking, well, is he a lawyer? So that was just a question I had.
And I found it interesting that David's recording would be at an attorney's office.
Yeah, why?
Exactly. That's just interesting, right, with David.
Yeah, well, you can't assume anything. Like, I assumed he was an attorney then. So...
Is there anything else we should discuss?
Trying to think if there's anything else that we haven't talked about that we wanted to make sure that we did talk about. We covered a lot here. We still got a few minutes left if anybody wants to finish up with any final thoughts here.
I really
Does
don't
any
have
of you...
anything.
I'm sorry, I just need to ask one question is, and I'm sorry for being such a pain, but does anybody else think that couch was moved?
Yeah, it's very possible that it could have been moved and they could have used a ladder or something to write on there and then push it back. But,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to find out any answers.
Yeah, no, I just wondered. It was one of my things in my head.
You know, I had thought that the couch was moved, but then looking a little bit closer, I did see some prints that did kind of look like somebody might have stepped on that couch, some bloody prints on the couch. But because the cameras that they use and because the lack of the digital technology that I have to kind of get a clear, some clear footage of that or some clear images, I'm just not sure. But one of the first things that we looked for was blood on that couch. There should be blood on that couch. If the bodies were there, if the three people were killed there, if Kamel was killed there, let's just say that, there should be blood on that couch. And it's very hard to see.
Well, there is the photo of, here we go. I'm going to go back and get it because Christy and I were talking about lack of blood and decomp and stuff. If you look at this one photo that I'm going to forward to you, Greg, as soon as I find it, there should be more decomp from Kamel. And there isn't. Oh, crap. Sorry. Christy, you're going to get it again. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Can't talk and think at the same time. But if you notice in that corner, there should be a lot more decomp and blood, and there just isn't. And then we look at a different photo of where David was supposedly laying, and I'll get that and send it to you. There should be a lot more there too. And there's not.
Yeah, especially for partial mummification to have occurred, they would have had to have been there. I mean, 3 weeks is really pushing it in itself from what I've been told. And that's based off of someone that's worked crime scenes. And they said that 3 weeks would even be pushing it, that they had never seen that. But, I mean, but if bodies, and I did clarify this as well, if the bodies were there 3 weeks, they would have been almost liquefied.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a big point. Can you restate that? I mean, you're basically saying that this decom thing is one of the biggest things that has always, been a focus, and I know nothing about this stuff, so I'm always interested to hear about the decomp and how that can help us with creating a timeline of when the bodies could have possibly been dead, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, well, for partial mummification to happen, they actually should have been there longer than 3 weeks. He didn't say that it was completely impossible. He had just never seen it happen that quickly. He just found that very, very strange. He just didn't see it as possible. But if they were, in order for them to have partial mummification, they would have had to have been there at least that 3 weeks. There's no way possible it occurred quicker than that. And if they were there for 3 weeks, then their bodies would have basically been liquefied.
Even if it was 68 degrees in the house?
Yes.
Yes, because what happens is the gases in the body, in the bacteria and stuff starts eating the body from the inside out. And so that's why you start liquefying inside. That's why you start producing all the gases that you start producing. It's because all of this bacteria and gas starts building up, and the bacteria starts eating away at all of the tissue and everything. And that's why I was telling you that when I asked about would it be possible for someone, if they were in an advanced stage of decomposition, if someone tried to move a body, say like if they tried to grab Rania by the arm and move her, if she were in an advanced stage of decomp, would it be possible for her arm to just come off? And they said yes.
And that makes sense.
And then the same goes for like the possibility of the other body parts, but definitely the arm, because I said, the arm was pulled out by the socket, and after everything breaks down like that, there's really not anything left to hold anything together except for like the skin, because it starts from the inside and works its way out. And that's why what causes a person to basically liquefy from, like, if you've seen any of the videos, is you bloat twice. You form two different types of bacteria, and so you bloat, you form that bacteria, those gases and everything, and your body starts consuming itself, and then it settles down. Well, then that second time you bloat, you kind of split, and you just start
starting to be slippage on Camille.
Yeah. You kind of just start oozing and everything. So And I'm asked about the scenario of, well, is it possible that the hand looks like it's mummified? Could a hand, like if a body were taken somewhere else and if it were left outside in the elements in freezing weather and that extremity froze, could it look mummified? And I was answered yes.
Okay, I just want to interject here. When I talked to the crime scene people, they said that if there is a lack of blood in the area, that some of the extremities and things will look mummified because that blood, the liquid, is not there. When you look at the crime scene photos, you can see Rania must have been laying on her left side at one point because where the decomp is on her pants, and David was laying on his left side also because his shirt is full of decomp on the left side. I do believe somebody bled them out because the reason they didn't liquefy was because of the fact that they didn't have that fluid to bubble like you were saying, but all of their organs were intact. All of the membranes of the organs were all intact, which is very odd if they were there for 3 weeks, because they would have started to break down. All the capsules and everything were intact, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and it doesn't make sense that they would still be intact if they were there for that long.
No, it doesn't.
What if they, thinking outside the box, and I'm not saying this actually happened, but what if they had been outside and had been frozen because of the elements, or an iron or shed kind of thing, exposed to the cold? Could they have been just frozen, basically, because of it being cold in winter? And then what we're seeing is just them having thawed out.
Right.
And that's why things are so off.
Right. Because like 8 to 10 days after a body starts to decompose, they start turning that red, green, purple color. And you can see that on Rania. And also because David's right abdomen and Comel's left backside looks like regular skin. It doesn't look like there's any decomp. So that's why, to me, they had been moved. They were kept somewhere in a cold environment. And that's why this whole thing is completely off.
Well, and if they froze quickly, that could explain the lack of lividity.
Right.
Well, lividity does turn into marbling throughout the decomposition process. And they did show marbling in the autopsy.
Yeah. It's just so weird how the bodies have so many different phases of decomp on them.
Yeah, it's just not one particular stage. It's all over the place.
And there's just no way. I mean, I've talked to other people as well. There's no way that the dog ripped her arm out of the socket.
No.
And ate it. Ate the entire thing in the entire hand. The person that I talked to, he's been in this for years, and he said he had never seen that. And he's seen some pretty bad stuff. I mean, he told me about some scavenging case, or about a scavenging case specifically that he had been on, and it wasn't anything like that.
And wild animals will not eat skulls.
No,
So
and
why would a
the
domesticated dog go to that first?
Well, in the cases
Well-
that this person has seen, that he never saw a skull get eaten either.
And there's
I've-
no
I've-
teeth marks on those skull pieces that we were looking at.
Yeah, and that
No,
was
but
the
if the-
other thing that I was asked, is if there were bite marks on the body, like if there were bite marks on their bodies, like, you know, any canine punctures or
There-
anything like that.
There is a photo of a finger or a thumb, and I know this is so gross, but you could tell that it had been chewed on. It's over by the Quran photos in the skull piece. And that one, yeah, it does look like it was chewed on. So I'm not going to say that Paleo didn't chew on them at all. I'm just saying I don't think he did it to the extent that the police are giving him credit for.
Right.
There's a book on audiobooks. She's a mortician. She has a series on YouTube also. But she wrote a book about Will My Cat Eat My Eyes? And she does talk about how animals will scavenge like the face, and if the skull is open, they will consume brain matter, eyeballs, you know, all that stuff. But they tend to go after the soft tissue, like you were saying before, too. You know, like the open soft tissue.
Well, and cats are more prone to doing that. That's the one that he told me about. A lady had been deceased for quite a while, and she had quite a few cats.
Yeah,
And the
I've heard
cat-
that, dude.
And the cat had been scavenging on her, but he said that her hands and her face were not touched.
Oh. Well,
See, I've heard
guess
of them eating the nose and the lips and the eyelids and stuff.
Yeah.
I have
Maybe-
heard of that.
I think they can, yeah. I mean, but it's just, from what I was told, it's more common for them to go for what he said was the more meaty parts of the body.
Mm-hmm. I've said this before. I have cats, and I told my daughter that I didn't ever want to live alone, because if I passed away, I didn't want my cats eating me. And so that was just, she laughed, but it's a legit fear that I have.
Well, one of the things is, and it's not even necessarily survival that makes them do it. It's usually what they do is they're trying to get you to wake up, and so they'll like lick you or something like that, and then if there's blood or something on you, because a lot of the times, regardless of how you die, after a certain point, blood will start coming out of your nose or your mouth. And they'll lick you, and if they lick you and they taste that blood, it triggers an instinctive thing in them to start eating.
Yeah, primal.
So it's not like, oh, I'm starving to death, I'm going to go eat my owner. It's more of a just, you know, instinctual thing that gets triggered. But that's why I find it weird that Rania was the least messed with, though, because she was smaller, and you would think that maybe he would have been concerned about her. And, you know, I don't know what their relationship was like, but it just seems strange that she's the least messed up. And I mean, and then you have to go back to how did he eat hands that were under a body? I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, there's no way he could have rolled her over a dead weight. I mean, it's hard for a strong adult to lift a person dead weight. Just for an average person, I mean, a person that's dead weight is extremely heavy. And so he would have had to have like tried to roll her over with his head and grab her hand and get it, and then you mean to tell me he pushed that arm back under there? That just doesn't make sense.
Unless, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I wouldn't necessarily argue with anyone on scavenging on any of the other parts, you know, because I do know it can happen. But, I mean, it would take a lot of convincing to make me believe that he ate her hands.
Well, I was thinking maybe Booth lifted up Kamel, and then Paleo went in there and took her hand, right?
No, what?
I was being really sarcastic.
I couldn't hear you.
I was just being an ass. I
Well,
was saying that
he
Booth
can
lifted up
fly.
Kamel.
Well,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
He can fly, so maybe he did lift her up.
Yeah, I just don't see how he couldn't.
It is the whole paranormal thing, because we've
Yeah,
got levitating dogs and levitating bodies. I mean, in order for this, for any of this to make sense, that's the only logical explanation to any of this.
Right.
But I mean, think about it. If you were gonna try, I mean, if you were gonna try and get to someone like that, I've been a nurse's aide before, and I've had to like change beds with the bed occupied with the person in them, And so,
Yeah.
I have to roll the person, one way and push the sheet through and then roll them the other way. And
Right.
just a person that is alive, that, isn't completely dead weight, it's not an easy task to keep a body rolled over while you're trying to do something else at the same time. I mean, he would have had to actually have, like, lifted her up in a way and rolled her over, kind of, and crawled underneath her. And he wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have wanted to be trapped underneath a body.
No. I've been a registered nurse for years, and I've had to do the dead body weight, moving and cleaning up and stuff like that. And there's no way. You have to have at least 2 people because, you take the chance of them, whatever, falling.
Yeah.
And who would be holding Kamel up so he could go under there?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if the only thing is if some kind of miracle happened and he, like, rooted his head under and wedged and, like, used his weight to push her and roll her over, but I don't think he would have been able to, because that's the thing. I don't think people realize how heavy a dead body is.
Yeah, it is heavy.
It's not like lifting a living person. It's extremely heavy.
Yeah, it is.
That's one reason why people, when they dump bodies and stuff, a lot of the times it's like right off the side of the road, or it's in a very convenient place that's close to a vehicle and stuff like that, because people can't go trekking extremely long distances with a dead body because they're not physically capable of doing it.
Right.
Now, is it twice the weight of a person who isn't dead, or like how much more weight are we talking about?
Well, it's not that they weigh any differently, Greg. It's just that you don't have a person helping you. That person, like, say you go to help somebody stand up like that is fallen. They have some strength and they're actually trying to work with you, to get up. Whereas a dead body, it just, like, think of a fish flopping around, you know what I mean? It's not, they're not there and they're not helpful. They can't hold on to a side rail. They can't do anything. It's just dead weight. That's why they say dead weight.
Yeah.
So it'd be
And
like
that's
me, like lifting weights, right? Like I can think of it if I want to.
Yeah.
What it's gonna feel like to just think of it as lifting that much weight. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever picked up a sleeping child? Maybe a cousin or a nephew or anything like that?
Not a sleeping child, no.
Okay. Well, or a sleeping person or a person who's passed out when you were a teenager and partying and stuff. Okay, you notice how heavy they are.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that was just me.
Oh, that was from the wine.
Oh, no. I had a very interesting teenage life.
It'd be more than wine. Yeah, if that happens from wine, I think
Yeah.
Stop now.
Okay, I lived right next to Mexico, so as a teenager, we went to Mexico quite often on the weekends. Yeah, we still don't even talk about half of the stories. And my sister tried to bring it up over at Christmas, and I was like, no, we don't talk about that. Maybe next year. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a good
what,
example. It's like somebody that's passed out. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, and that's why, like, the firefighters, their training is so intense. Like, they have to carry, a certain amount of weight up and down stairs with all of their equipment on, because, they may have to actually carry, a completely passed out person. And so they've got to be able to carry that dead weight. That's why the training for firefighters is so because it's really different, Greg, if you think about it. Like, if you were to go in and you were like to, like, just, if you had, like, um a weight bench, and you just, like,
Mhm.
put the weights on the floor, even if you put like 130 pounds on the floor and you just tried to deadlift it,
Break my back.
Yeah.
yeah,
I have a broken back.
exactly. It's very different than, like,
So, okay, because that brings up a great point. Because one of the theories that I keep hearing is that the bodies were, that they weren't dead there. And I'm talking about even psychics, other people, outside of just the public realm, that have
Mhm.
said that the bodies were not there. They were not killed there. They were brought back into the house. My biggest problem with that, and just because I say this, I don't want people to think that I'm crapping on their theories or anything like that, or saying that it's not possible. I'm just playing this thing out in my head and thinking about it. There are, to pick up that much weight, to bring it back into the house. Not saying it's not possible, but there's a lot of factors that would be involved, including neighbors that don't see it. It's hard for me, and I'm definitely open to it, but I have a hard time thinking why somebody would take that risk of just bringing the three bodies back into that house and putting them there. That's a lot of weight. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. You have to worry about neighbors. There's too many variables that I see.
Mhm. But it could
yeah,
be done.
the neighbor thing is an issue. Um, that's one thing that I've wondered about. Unless, they went around through the back,
But there's
very,
even less.
very.
But there's no fences. I mean, if you look at those fences, there is one period where the fences look like they're kind of wooded off. There's some wood on the fences, but for the most part, there's really no fencing in between these houses. Everybody can see everybody's backyard. Everybody is in everybody's business. It's so open, too open. We would not put up with that here in California.
I mean, you would have to look at a lot of. You would really have to look at a lot of variables, because I see what you're saying. I'm not saying that I don't think that it happened, but I'm just saying I see what you're saying. You would have to look at variables. You would need to look at, like, and I know this is going to sound insane, but you would have to look at, like, was it a full moon or was it a crescent moon? What stage the moon was in? If there was snow on the ground and there was a full moon or a lot of moonlight, yes, it would be very, very visible. But if it were really cloudy and it wasn't a full moon and it was a very, small crescent moon, if they didn't have porch lights on and stuff, it might be possible if there wasn't a lot of snow on the ground, because snow's going to add light, so but so you would have to look at those variables to see, what it was like and everything.
And you also have to take into the fact that it could have been after midnight, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I know I don't look outside my window once the blinds are shut at that time of night.
And Paleo would have definitely had to have been locked down in the basement then if that were going on. Because he would have
Because of
been
his sound?
barking,
Because of
which would have,
so he would right.
because my dogs bark if a leaf blows across the ground. I mean, literally, they're ridiculous. I mean, they see a leaf move and they go crazy. So, dogs, you know, they're that's one reason why people like having them, you know, aside from many other reasons. But so they would have had to have put him somewhere or even taken him somewhere else to do it. But I do see that it could be done, and I can see reasons for the theory because I see things where I have theories about certain evidence that I think, well, maybe this was caused from the bodies being moved. Like if the footprints are real, because it's just the balls of the feet, if someone were, or someone's were trying to move David and they lost their grip and just dropped him down for a second, his feet could have touched, and that would explain why just the fronts of his feet went down. And I just have a really big problem with the way the one foot is facing one way and the other one is straight. I mean, it just looks very weird and awkward to me. But I mean, maybe they weren't taken out of the house. Maybe they were taken in the basement. You know, they didn't really look that closely at the basement. Maybe they were taken into the basement and then moved.
The basement. Yeah. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of things down there.
I mean, it's been a lot quieter.
Right. Well, okay. So as a dog owner, I don't know if you're a dog owner in the snow, how all of that works, but what the police reports say is that on December 24th or December 25th, Colin Prochnow blew out their driveway. So even by that time, the Crowley driveway was, you know, there was still snow on it. So when Colin Prochnow was doing that, would the dog bark if it's by itself, or does that show that maybe everything was fine by then? When Dan Crowley Jr. leaves the presence there on December 28th, the dog is barking. Aside from that, there's no bark. There's no reports of anybody who was there who has seen anything. There's no reports of the dog barking. That's it.
See, I don't know what his temperament was like, but like I could tell you, like if someone were even just standing in my driveway, it doesn't matter what time of night or morning it is. If someone were even just standing in my driveway, my dogs would know it and they would be going berserk.
We have dogs that live above us. There's 3 of them, and they go insane when anybody drives up. They just barking at the window, jumping at the window, everything. Now, if somebody's home with them and telling them to be quiet, they'll settle down a lot sooner.
Mm.
But I mean,
Now,
I
would
can
they
park
also
my.
bark? Would they also bark for people that they know? Like, because I'm not a dog owner, so can they tell the difference between a car that is pulling up that they know as opposed to a family that is pulling up that they don't know, et cetera, et cetera?
No, they still bark even when their owners come.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
They like
they
to
go
bark.
even more berserk for them.
Because
Mine
they
just
know.
bark for different reasons, but mine have a different bark. Like when my husband comes home, it's a different kind of bark. It's more of like, oh, yay, we're excited kind of bark, and they go crazy, as opposed to a more aggressive. But even if it's people that they know, they'll still bark. Like they don't really get friendly until the person that they know comes in the house, and they sniff them, and they're like, oh, okay, I know you. You're okay. But if they're outside, if the person's outside, they go berserk. I mean, my poor mailman and like the UPS guy, they just throw the package on the porch and knock and run.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, that's what's weird about when you look at where the mailboxes are. They're very far from where the house is. So the mailman and the whole dog mailman interaction that I was looking to kind of judge this by really isn't there, because they're very far from where the house is. But it's just so strange that nobody hears that dog barking for a long time. And here's my one of the biggest questions for dog owners is, if a dog is starving, if a dog doesn't have anything to eat, would it start barking? Would it start crying? Would it start yelling? Because there are some nights out here where I hear neighborhood dogs crying for no reason, or just being very, very loud. Like, it's just weird to me that nobody hears that dog.
Yeah, mine bark when they're hungry. They let me know if they're out of food or water. They bark at me and let me know. And so, I mean, I do know some dogs bark, but like I have these neighbors that they're just, ugh, they keep their dogs tethered to trees out in their backyard, and they leave them out there even in the pouring rain and stuff. And those poor dogs just bark constantly. They bark constantly. But dogs they're very territorial. I mean, even if they're not aggressive animals, they're extremely territorial. And so, I mean, that it is weird that no one else heard him barking, because I would think he would have been barking, but he could have been either taken somewhere else, or he could have been put in the basement, which I think for everything that happened, he, like I've said before, he either had to have been put in that kennel or put in the basement.
Well, okay, but here's the problem there. Here's the problem there, and is who it would have to have been by somebody that the dog knew, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it can't just be any random person. I mean, maybe it could be. When you look at when the officers lured that dog out of the house, they just used treats and they lured it out. It was still barking and whatever, but they were able to lure it out. So,
well, I mean, a mean person could grab a hold of a dog that small, and there's ways, like you could throw a blanket over a dog if it's an out of control dog, and
You could trick it
like
too with treats.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, I'm not saying they did it any humane way, but someone could have just grabbed a hold of him and threw him down the steps, or shoved him into the cage, wrapped a blanket around him or something, and then crammed him in the cage. I mean, it's possible. I mean, because he's not that big of a dog, and it really depends on the dog how they'll react. Like, because some dogs can act extremely aggressive, but then if you go at them, they might become passive. You know, it just depends on it depends on the dog, to be honest.
All right. Anybody else have anything else that we should cover? We still have like 12 or 13 people in the chat room, even with all of our technical difficulties and all of that. We've still been able to keep this going here. So we've gone about 3.5 hours. Um, Anybody have any final things here? I know we do have. I'm going to be on Eric Spitfire Wilkinson's show next week on Wednesday, and then I do want to come back on Friday, January 17th, 2020. And I would like for us, I don't know, we need to figure out some way, something we can do to kind of keep this case going. I want to thank everybody in the chat room, everybody in the group, everyone who has helped us keep this case going. And just, we know that what they told us is not true. And so that is the truth here. That's where we keep going back to is, it's the same thing. And I'm still waiting for a few things from Detective Jim Gummert, and hoping to talk with some people who knew David, and trying to get some background on all of that and what David was like. And we're just regular people here, asking these simple questions because for whatever reason the investigators decided that this was an open and shut case. And from day one, within 24 hours, they were going back to the same thing, that David Crowley is guilty. That I can understand. I don't understand why the people who were working with David, the people who knew David, the people who lived with David, the people who grew up with David, why any of them would just say, yeah, he's guilty. I don't understand why Kamel's sister says that. I don't understand why Kamel's dad is okay with that. And maybe they're not. Maybe they're just being quiet for whatever reason. Maybe they're going to get to the point where they want to create a counter documentary to what Eric Nelson created. I don't know, but they have got to understand there is a reason why this case stands out, and why so many people can look at this case and see some of the simple facts that David Crowley is not guilty. Whatever you want to think, whatever theory you want to create, whatever you want to say, whatever you think happened, that is a simple fact. He's not guilty. Nobody can tell us that he's guilty. It can't be done. If the people that investigated it, if the family, if the friends, if nobody can prove that, why should we think that that is true or even take that seriously? And even to go even further, it's like, you're going to try to tell me, you're basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to trick us. They're trying to trick us into thinking that something that isn't true is true. and we're all just sitting here like, wait a minute. We would love to believe that, the case is solved, they got the right guy, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a slam dunk case where you can clearly see that this is not a double murder suicide.
I would like to add also that there's one easy way for those saying that David is guilty to get us to shut up and go away. Show us that absolute proof that he's guilty. Show us what convinced you that he's guilty. Otherwise, we're going to continue to ask questions, and we're going to continue to pick apart the narrative and the documentary and your lies that you've been posting on social media. So, show us. And if it's absolute proof, well then, there's nothing else to say. But no more of this secret knowledge or, oh, we can't show you because it's confidential, that kind of thing, but you have to take our word for it. I'm not playing that game anymore.
And I don't know why that is even an excuse, because I mean they're no longer here, and if people think that what we're doing is just continuing to perpetuate pain and to keep something going, I don't see how anything that they could show us, that if it was absolute proof, how it could make it any worse. I mean, I think we would just accept it and go, okay, well, yeah, we saw absolute proof. I mean, I don't think that, it's not logical to me at all, like that they're trying to protect something or someone, and if they're no longer here, their reputation can't be harmed, and especially with what all has already been said about them, I don't think
they're not protecting David's reputation anymore. Not after that documentary, and not after the crap they've posted all over Facebook.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't see what the reason could be. So, yeah, I mean, all it's going to do is just make, if there's absolute proof, all it's going to do is just make us go away and go on about our business and be like, okay, yeah, y'all are right.
And those saying that us continuing to ask questions is hurting the family, those very people have never even spoken to the family. They are assuming that what we are saying is hurting the family. So they're just... Anyway.
I don't see how trying to clear a person's name who was never even given a fair trial before he was convicted, just based solely on the fact that he's convicted of something based off of just, oh, you just have to take our word for it, how that's not hurting him and his family and his legacy.
Anyway.
Well said.
Oh, I'm so tired of their games. I'm just not playing them anymore. I'm going to continue to ask questions.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I entitled this David Crowley Questions, because that's what it really is. It's not like, oh, okay, here's what happened. Let's all go with this theory. Let's all go with this story. That's what the Gray State team did. We can't do that. We can't be like them, and we're not going to be like them, because we are not a collective group looking at this and saying, this is what happened, we need to go with that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we have independent people all looking at this case, all coming to the same conclusion. There's no evidence David Crowley is guilty, however you want to look at it. Now, you have people that don't want to look at the evidence and will say that David Crowley is guilty. I understand that, because if you're not willing to look at the evidence why he is innocent, then sure, you can believe whatever you want. You live in that fairyland world, that's fine. But for people who really want to see, okay, what proves that he's innocent, what proves that he's guilty, that's simple. Take your feelings out of it. And I understand, for the family and the friends, it is impossible to take your feelings out of it. But to the friends and family, I'm sure you've looked at other cases. I'm sure you have other views on other things that you are not a part of, and you still have a view based on facts. If you can have a view, a political view, whatever, a spiritual view, based on facts, based on what you've researched, you should be able to have a serious, intelligent view on this case based on the facts that your family member, that your friend has never been proven guilty, and David Crowley will never, ever be proven guilty, period. Case closed. You have to start there. And the problem is they don't even want to go there, because they think that if they go there, then that's going to show that it's a government. It's going to show. No, nobody's saying any of that. All we're saying is, please understand, your family member, your friend, has never been proven guilty, and he never will. Period. So don't act like he is guilty, because he's not. It's that simple. I don't know where the disconnect is.
It's too bad that the GS guys couldn't have been better friends to David and Camille. Instead, they were wanting to make a documentary and a name for themselves, instead of actually getting to the truth and asking real questions.
Yeah. Bad move on their part.
And it's really funny that the mentality of, just, he's guilty, just believe he's guilty. It reminds me of, like, when I was a little kid, and, like, my mom or my dad would say, don't do this or don't do that, and they'd say, because I said so.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well,
exactly.
That's illogical. That doesn't tell me anything. You're not teaching me anything. I mean, because I said so, why should I believe that? Show me. And thus I changed, that when I was raising my kids, and I would explain to them why, because I would want them to be intelligent and understand the reasons why they should and shouldn't do things, rather than just having that mentality of, because I said so, because that just doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't answer any questions, and so it's just going to keep raising continuous questions.
Yeah, and I think it can never be said over and over. It needs to be said over and over. Is these are questions or asking questions, and the problem is you have so many people that came to a conclusion so early on, so just with no evidence before the case was closed. This isn't like the Gray State team and the family and friends waited until the case was closed and said, you know what, David's guilty. This was being pushed on them from day one, from the very start, from the 911 call. It was all staged. However you want to look at it, whether it was staged on purpose or whatever. I mean, this whole thing it just plays out like a bad script that someone needs to unravel. There is a murder mystery here that needs to be unraveled. And the more people that look at this and come to their own conclusion based on the facts, I believe that is how we are going to get to unravel this mystery here. Because we all have our own theories, we all have our own thoughts, publicly, privately, but it's not about us. It's not about them. It's not about the family. It's not about the friends. It is about the 3 people that lost their lives, that are dead. It is about them. And I expect, and I'm sure a lot of you might also, expect the family and friends to understand that. This is not about us. This is not about us trying to make the case about us. And I want them to make sure that they don't make this tragedy about them. Just because you're a family, just because you're a friend, does not mean that this is about you. Take your feelings out of it and start thinking factual. Things like this happen. We need to understand what really happened here. And if you're not willing to do that, if you don't want to figure out what happened, that's fine. Do not stand in our way. Just stay out of our way. Let us figure it out on our own. And I just hope that someday the family and the friends will actually join us. And I end a lot of these calls like that, because it all comes back to that, where it's so simple. The family, the friends, the alternative media. There's a lot of people that could be standing right here with us, and we probably would have gotten a lot further. But they don't, and they won't, and they want to stand in our way. There's really not too many people. Personally, I have never felt resistance from the family on either side. Personally, I haven't. It's only from the Gray State team. It's only from them.
Well, and though,
Could you
I just
imagine?
wanted to add. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, could you imagine how much further we would have been and probably over this case if they would have worked with us and helped us through it instead of throwing up lies and brick walls?
Yeah, I could be watching wrestling. You could be focused
Right?
on that right now instead of this.
Well, and I
drinking
just wanted
wine
to add.
with
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was being an ass again. That's okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to add that one thing that I thought about is, it's not about us wanting to be right. I mean, I don't know if there's a thought about, us that we just insist that we are right or we want to be right, because I mean, proof in that is that in the group that we have, there are so many people that have so many different varying theories, and everyone just tries to work together to try and, just ask questions to try and come to a conclusion, to an answer, so it's not about wanting or needing to be right. So like Sophia said, if there's definitive proof that he did it, then just show us, because it's not like we're doing this just because we want to be right. I mean, because there's not even one specific running theory. I mean, we're just trying to get to the truth.
I'm into that. Shall we wrap this up, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. Unless anybody else has anything else they wanna add, I'll shut this down here. I might end with a little. I might end with one of the videos that we just put out, but I do hope everybody can come back here Friday, and we will just continue